Hello, everybody. I thought we'd try something new.
That was Dr. Nick. Hello, everybody. It's
as,
Dr. Nick.
as you can hear, it's Dan. Dan's on the
Yeah, no, it's
stream.
Dr. Nick.
Dan's podcasting from his bathtub. This is why we don't have any video.
There's a bit of echo. No, today I'll be saying the role of Dr. Nick from The Simpsons. So we'll see how that goes.
Do we have echo? Is that like...
No, there isn't. I haven't put any echo on it. That was a joke about the bathtub.
Oh,
which,
sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't get that. I'm dumb.
Yeah. We'll fix it in post.
Yeah, completely.
I'll put some canned laughter over that.
I was like looking around. It's like, why is there echo? What's going on here?
Sorry,
damn.
no, there's not any actual echo. I think I can put that on through the effects on the desk, but I'm not going to do that.
Oh my god. I've missed doing stuff with you. It's like, I'm going to use the desk. Anyway,
I can definitely put echo on this somehow. Hold on, let me see.
Oh no, what have I started?
FX, hold on.
FX channel.
Hello,
Activated.
is that working?
No.
Well, anyway, I'll sort that for next time.
Hello.
I used to have it wired up. Yeah.
Is that you?
Hello.
Yeah. Yeah, so in case you're watching this, if you're watching this, hello, welcome. I thought we would try, so Dan and me, we're going to meet today to record 2 episodes of Hollywood Outlaws, which we actually wanted to do like 2.5 hours ago, but I was like really late doing stuff. And I thought...
I was in the bath as well, so that was
right, yeah.
not ideal. I haven't got a waterproof case for my recorder yet. That's to come in the near future, probably.
There probably is one for the H.
There probably is for the H4, yeah, because it's relatively popular. It's what David Attenborough uses when he's doing those underwater documentaries.
Is he still alive?
He is still alive, yeah.
Is he?
He's
Wow.
90-something.
Right.
94 or something like that.
Is he still doing stuff?
He still did it. He did a show this year, which is amazing.
Holy crap.
David Attenborough, hold on. There we go. David Attenborough broadcast. This is live Google research. People. I think he's in his early to mid-90s. 92.
Oh my
There you
god.
go. He was born in 1926.
Holy
Imagine the shit he's seen in his life. He was 20 when the First World War ended. Or,
I mean, my grandma is 96. She's 97 this year actually. Yeah, it's pretty much, that's wild.
That's a long time.
That's wild. I don't have any show notes. I'm just noticing for this episode.
I've got notes in my tablet here.
I've got paper
pages
notes.
of
I mean, I didn't start the show notes file.
No, that's fine.
If you have any links, just send them to me in chat.
And we'll have to remember to do the bit at the end where we say thanks to.
Yeah. I pulled old show notes up for that. It's just like I'm just opening like a random file in a text editor here so I can note down, because stuff will come up that I will need to have to put in the show notes. So I'll do that, and then we can start, right?
I'm ready when you are.
The first episode. Okay, I put a stopwatch somewhere on this desktop. Where the hell is that? Okay, that's there. I'm just organizing my windows. Just don't mind me. I'm just pushing windows around here.
I thought you were doing screen sharing when you said you were doing Twitch, but no.
I could do that, yes, but
but you probably don't want that because you might have stuff on your screen.
I'm too worried that I just will show like random stuff people don't need
pop
to
up
see.
Notifications and shit.
My browser history, all the porn.
Yeah, there's that as well. Yeah,
I've been browsing, stuff like that. Yeah, we can go if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready when you are.
Just need to. I've still got this damn cold.
Yeah, I've got a cold as well, so this will be an interesting.
I think everybody's having a cold, isn't it? Like everybody I talk to.
Season for it.
It's like
I'm
Dave has
honey
the
and lemon at the
flu.
moment.
It's like everybody has something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 'tis the season.
It is. Yeah, exactly. Good callback.
Tis the season for the flu. Okay. Anyway, let's start the show. How are we doing the intro? I can't remember that.
We just say hello and welcome.
Okay, why don't you do that?
Who wants to do it? All right, I'll do it.
You have it down.
You ready? What episode is this? 7?
7.
It must be. We're on Bosch episode 7, and we're keeping track so far. So.
Yeah.
All right, and ready?
Ready.
Hello and welcome to. Hang on, let me get the title right. I'll start again.
Take 2.
Take 2. Slate that one. Hello and welcome to Hollywood Outlaws, episode 7. My name is Dan, and I'm speaking to you from Liverpool in the UK.
And this is Fab from Hamburg. And
Mm.
yeah, we're back. New year,
Yeah.
old Bosch, I guess.
New Year, old Bosch. Yeah. It's 2019, which freaks me out a bit because it feels like we should be in space by now.
Well, it's Blade Runner. Isn't that when Blade Runner is set?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah. No, I think is it? Shit, you might be right actually, because 2049 was.
Now
the
I
recent
have to look this up.
Blade Runner 2049 was that other one, but that was
the
set
new one,
30 years. But I'm sure that was set 20 or 30 years after the original, so you could be right there.
In 2019 Los Angeles, former police officer Rick Deckard.
Mm.
Blah, blah, blah.
So where are the flying cars and all the rest of it? Unbelievable.
Oh, they did show. So I saw like this meme of like 2019. So what I think was it Beijing or something in Blade Runner?
Mm-hmm. Everything's got the Chinese stuff on it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but they showed like a picture of like Beijing today and the smog, and it looks like this looks like Blade Runner.
Wow. Okay.
It's amazing. Anyway, what are you drinking?
Honey and lemon at the moment.
Oh, well, my cold's not that bad. I have a Landgang. This is the wrong. I've got two cameras. Behind the scenes, we are. I'm live streaming this because I wanted to. So I went to some experiments, and so now I have cameras and a Landgang craft beer from the Landgang Brauerei.
Nice.
Landgang.
Where is that nearby? Where's that in relation to?
I don't know. Where's that from? Landgang means when sailors. What do you call that? Shore leave.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Where's that from? It's from Hamburg.
Oh, well, there you go then.
Bärenweg 12. Let's see how far that is from where I am.
We can go and find out.
We were talking then, and we were talking before the show. Like everybody seems to have a cold, and we're both like afflicted right now. I guess that's why you on the lemon. And
I am. Yeah, it's tea. It is tea, but it's tea with honey and lemon that I've added to soothe the throat.
Well, this brewery is really close.
Well, now you can know where to go and take your bottles back.
It's like 20 minutes.
Huh. You can take your bottles back and say, fill them up.
Yeah, exactly. So let's open it first. Yeah, so we're back. New year, old Bosch, doing more episodes. Before we get into this one, the thing I wanted to say is that we planned that. So we're doing the first season, which is 10 episodes. So we're coming up to the end of the first season, and I thought after that we'll do like a wrap-up show where we'll talk about the season, and maybe I guess it'll be a bit longer, and then we'll just have one show that month. But we wanted you to send us feedback on that. I thought that was a cool idea. You called it like the
finale after the finale.
Yeah, the what is that? So like a
well, in America they have the big thing they always call it's an old theatre term, isn't it? But a finale is the big final show, isn't it? And in American TV parlance, they always have like the season finale of whatever show it happens to be, and it's just the last show of the series. And they're always like, tune in next week for the big season finale of Bosch or whatever. And then it's just the last episode of the series. So we're going to have a finale after the finale of Bosch, which will be episode 10.
Finale
and episode
squared.
11 will be finale 2. This time it's personal.
Yeah, so I thought if you have any questions, you, the listeners, that is, why don't you just send them in, and we're just going to try to answer those on that episode. So you can send them to feedback@sixgun.org.
And not just questions as well. Send us your thoughts on
comments.
Because a few of our friends have watched the series based on us doing this show. So it'd be nice to hear, if you did watch it, what did you like it? What do you think? So send us that.
Which your favorite Harry? Parenting Harry or conservative Harry?
Smooth Harry. It's got to be Smooth Bosch for me. Yeah, which sounds like it should be another beer, actually.
Smooth Bosch. That's great.
A glass of ice cold Smooth Bosch.
He keeps drinking craft beer as well, so I guess it'll fit. They need that branding. Let's call Amazon. Let's get that going. I'm getting in contact with the Landgang Brauerei.
Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is online too for you.
Oh, he has other problems right now. Did you see that? He's
So I heard.
getting divorced.
Yeah, I saw that and it's announced. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, but I did see that, but I haven't read into it because I'm not that interested in his life. But I do know it's been big news the last.
Well, it's just it's kind of weird. He's like saying, we're still friends," like after 25 years of marriage.
I'd be interested to know, with him being like the richest man in the world now, what the divorce settlement is.
Well, it's going to be the biggest one ever.
Yeah, because it's going to be half of the richest man in the world's, stuff. Hopefully, if it's a first.
Unless he has a really good prenup or something.
He seems like the sort of guy who'd have thought of that ahead, like 30 years ago.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I'm going to be massively rich. So although we're getting married now and I'm not rich, we need to write this in that when I do get massively rich, you can't have any of it. And this is all just allegedly, obviously, on my part. But he seems to be very well planned ahead, that guy, because he wanted to call. I'm sure you probably know this already, but he wanted to call originally Amazon. The name for the company was Relentless.
Really?
He wanted to call it. Yeah.
Really?
Jeff Bezos was like, I'm starting a new company. I'm calling it Relentless.
That's an amazing name.
That's his attitude. That's his attitude to fucking life, isn't it? And everything. And
why didn't he do that? Was that taken or something?
Somebody said that's not a very good name, and he changed his mind, and then called it.
That is a very good name. If that's not taken, I'm going to start a company called Relentless.
Well, like Relentless Prime.
Yeah, it's like we've got Six Gun.
It sounds like, I'm sure Relentless isn't Relentless one of those energy drinks now, because they're all called something.
Probably.
Like
I'm pretty sure it's a ship. Like USS Relentless. I think it's a ship in Star Trek.
It will be. Relentless drink. There you go. So there's apparently a fairly popular drink called Relentless. Yeah.
So it's a ship in the expanded universe in Star Trek, NCC 75637, but it's a real U.S. Navy ship.
Oh, yeah,
USNS Relentless was a stalwart class modified tactical auxiliary general ocean surveillance ship. What?
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
What? Oh, God. Anyway, let's get into Bosch.
It's also, very quickly, I'll send you the link after for the show notes, but it's also, Monster, the energy drink people? Yeah. So Monster have got a drink brand called Relentless, and it's a separate registered trademark, so I don't think you'll get Relentless, because I think Monster have already got it.
Well, I think Bezos could just buy it.
Bezos could, yeah. I'm thinking of you. You were like, I'm going to start a thing called Relentless.
Yeah.
I was like, you might need to talk to Monster Energy about that. Or Monster Beverage is apparently the name of the company, which is a great name. Monster Beverage. Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about Bosch then. Have we got anything else to mention before? I don't think so. Happy New Year. We've kind of said that, I suppose.
Yep.
Episode 7 of Bosch is what we're on now.
Oh, and one thing I want to say, we will keep going with season 2. Don't worry. After the finale, won't be the finale of this show.
Yeah, there's 4 seasons to date, but there'll be another one this year, so that'll be 5. And based on our current schedule of 2 a month, I worked out that's about 2 years worth, 2.5 years worth of content.
With season 5.
With season 5, it'd be 2.5 years of content. So we're doing pretty well on that front.
You're doing the hard-hitting math.
Kind of. That. Not very well, but yeah. I am rough. It's very rough maths. But yeah, it's about 2.5 years worth of content. So we've still got 2 years almost. With season 5, we'll have, because that'll be out by the time we get to it. Season 6 might be out, and 7 by that time. I don't know if they carry on that fun. Who knows?
I hope.
But
there's a lot of books that can keep this going for a while.
Yeah, but you know what it's like with these series. They suddenly just can them for some reason. I don't know how its ratings are. I don't, because a lot of people don't seem to know it, because it was one of the first Amazon original things, and it wasn't as well known as, say, Netflix, who have loads of original stuff now, and they have for a while. But I don't know how popular it is, so I'd be worried that Amazon might just go. If Jeff Bezos is like, I don't like this Bosch thing anymore, it might just go.
Or if his wife gets the Amazon,
she gets Bosch in the divorce.
She gets it says in the divorce papers half of the shows, and he gets Grand Tour and she gets Bosch. And then she's like, I don't like this Welliver guy. Let's just kill it.
Let's get Nicolas Cage in to redo it.
Oh, my God.
That would be awful. Anyway, on that horrible note, shall we talk about episode 7 then?
Let's do this.
Yeah.
Season 1, episode 7, Lost Boys. Oh.
A nice reference to The Lost Boys, though, the film.
Do you
Classic
think?
film.
Do you think?
Yeah.
It,
Well,
it
I don't
is
think it is a reference to the Lost Boys. It's just what I think of when someone says Lost Boys. It's vampires and shit.
Did he? I
Yeah.
I found out you were talking about it's not well known. It was a Amazon original. I did find something the other day. Because I was looking up the some stuff to do with the pilot and like on guns used
Oh yeah.
on the series, and apparently there is another version of the pilot, the one they originally shown,
Oh, okay.
is different. You know the scene we were talking about with Bosch in the parking lot, where you can't tell if like are they trying to say he planted the gun? Did the guy have a gun? And apparently in the original pilot, there is a scene where you can see Bosch planting a gun.
That had changed the character quite a bit, wouldn't it? Or
Exactly.
it would changed the view of the character a lot.
I found that quite interesting that they took that out.
Yeah, yeah. They have a weird process though. We've talked about it before, but Amazon they have this process where they commission a load of pilots from say 7 different show makers, one of which might be Bosch, and then they get people to vote on them, and they have this thing through the Amazon website where you can vote on whether you think it should go to series or not, and that's how they decide which one's going to get a series. Because they've done loads of pilots on Amazon. There's loads of things that have never gone anywhere. Same with Netflix, I suppose, to some degree. Anyway, yeah. So let's keep our fingers very much crossed that it's going to carry on for a bit
I
longer.
just found that interesting because thinking back at the book, they also like, you know how that it was very different there. I told you about the guy with the hairpiece and that, and there it's very clear that Bosch didn't plant a gun. I mean, he was like, there it's more like it's clear that he shot the guy, but like it's made clear that it was like Bosch was doing it in good faith, right? He was thinking he was going to do the right thing. And if you here saw him like planting a gun, then that would have been very different.
It doesn't. It starts it off a bit more like The Shield or something, where he's a crooked cop basically from the start. I'd be interested to know what kind of influence Michael Connolly has over this as the author, because I know the rights were sold for the thing, but he's consulting on it. So I wonder if even he could have said, like, I'm not really happy that you've done this with Bosch.
He's not consulting. He's the executive producer, as far as I can understand.
Then he may have changed his mind.
He's very much involved. Yeah, he might have changed that.
Cool.
Anyway, so this episode starts
in the back of a black and white.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been a while since last episode. So basically, they're taking Stokes to the station. Bosch and that other guy in the car the other officer taking Stokes back to the station because of the whole thing with Brasher in the parking garage.
It actually directly carries on from the last episode that we did, where at the end the car leaves and Bosch has got Stokes in the car with a uniformed officer driving, and he's like, "I'm going to the station now," and they go, "You've got to wait for FID," and he goes, "Yeah, whatever," and then he gets off, and as he drives off in the car, that's where the episode ends. So this kind of picks up on that drive back to the station, presumably.
Yep, immediately, and then Bosch hands him off to Pierce.
One thing I noticed, and this goes back to the fact that it's been a while since we did the last episode, was there's a bit where you see him like washing his eyes, and his eyes are all red, and I put down Bosch has pink eye ? And then I put, oh no, it's probably Mace, the Mace. From
it's from the. It's a detergent.
The guy kind of sprayed him in the eyes, didn't he, with the thing? So he takes Stokes into the station and hands him off to Pierce and says, "Sit on this guy. I need you to sit on this guy." Is what he says to him.
Sit on his face. It's kinky, Bosch.
Yeah, that's another Bosch. So there's that, and Stokes seems to protest it a lot. He's like, "Don't leave me with this guy," because he knows that they think he's like shot a cop,
and also because Pierce is black. I think, and he's one of them. I don't know. It's something. I think he's afraid because
of people of color.
Yeah, because I don't know why that's how I interpreted it. I don't know why. I think because
maybe
Brasher's partner was also black, and he immediately started beating.
Oh, you're right. He did. He says something about the guy nearly kicked my chest in or something, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Maybe something to do with that. I also thought maybe it was just because it was the police, and
but that wouldn't make sense because one of them, like Bosch, is one of them as well. It's like what?
Yeah, but he
Maybe
knows Bosch hasn't tried to kick his head in the
okay.
car, so there is that. So maybe
Also,
that's
maybe
part.
because he's a uniform police officer, maybe that's what he means by one of them.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, but yeah. So Bosch then goes after washing his eyes, goes back to talk to Stokes in the interrogation room, and he presses him, leans on him, and about Arthur, the kid who was killed, and says, you must know more about him. And Stokes says, he asks why Stokes' father would know. Sorry, why Arthur's father would know Stokes, and all this. He's like, why would he know you? And he says, his pops must have known me from round the neighbourhood. Is his very unconvincing explanation. And then at that point, FID arrives. So someone goes, Bosch, FID's here for you. And obviously he needs to talk to them about the Brasher thing.
So did you find him unconvincing in that scene? Because I didn't pick up on this. I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember. Now I know because we watched 2 episodes, right? Because
we know what happens.
No, I know what happens, but I had forgotten all about this, and I kind of found him. I thought he was just dumb.
He is quite dumb, but what I tend to do on this is because Bosch is supposed to be the main. Well, he is the main character, but he's supposed to be like the smartest one and all that. I often look at his reaction, and he's really good, Titus Welliver, at doing that thing where he looks at people in a way where he doesn't say anything, but he's like, "Yeah, you're full of shit." And I think he does that at some point to Stokes during that scene, and I was like, "Yeah, Bosch doesn't believe this." Which then you tend to think, because Bosch tends to be right about everything. It turns out, because it's his show, that he may well be right about that. So yeah, and then we get the title sequence, obviously.
Exactly, I can hear it in my. Anyway, yeah, and we cut to Waits prepping his hijacking kit.
This was quite weird. This is funny. It's funny in a horrible way that like what he's doing is practicing in his little car SUV, whatever you want to call it. The whole like he's rigged up this fucking thing with the sack, the bag thing on the back of the chair, and he's practicing his pull the string with one hand.
Yeah, and he's got this all sorted, and he's got it all sorted out. He's got like the
tase.
Yeah, and he's got like the bag like strapped to the headrest. And
I put down he's practicing his bag over the head, taser to the face move, in one, which is effectively what he's doing. It's only a really short scene, that, because that's all you see is him doing that.
Yeah. And he takes Krait's badge.
Yeah, which is still a big thing, and he's got his gun still, I think, hasn't he, as well?
Yeah,
Krait's gun. So that's only a short scene, and then it's back to the station where Harry's been interviewed by FID,
who are not pissed at all that he left the scene. They don't even mention that.
Yeah, it's an odd one, isn't it? And I put down Harry is being vague with FID. And he says to them, "Did you interview Brasher yet?" And they say no. And then he doesn't really say anything because he wants to wait till she's spoken to them.
Yeah,
he says
he's protecting her, obviously.
And he keeps saying he can't remember things. And then he says, unconvincingly, from Harry this time, I thought, it says it might come back to me in time. He's like, oh, maybe I'll remember in a bit. And they're like, And then I
think the FID guy knows what he's doing as well.
Yeah,
he's going like, yeah. I.
He does, yeah. And also, as he leaves in that scene, as he walks out, I put the desk jockey, the guy outside, tells him FID is going to throw the book at Stokes for attempting to apparently murder Brasher, which he knows is not what happened.
Yep. He's
so that sets up some kind of, he's like, he's got a dilemma there. He can't let a guy get done for, trying to shoot a police officer when he didn't do that.
Well, also not Stokes, because at this point Stokes like his witness, right? Like he kind of needs Stokes. He wants to get information out of Stokes.
Very true.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorite scenes, actually, so again it's only short, is because I really like Krait, as you know, Krait and Barrel of both of them. But Bosch goes to the hospital to visit Krait, who's in bed reading a book or something. And he says, and they discuss like what's going on, but not for very long. But Krait says to him very kind of seriously at one point, when you catch up with him, use my gun, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I think we all know what he means.
Also, like Bosch greets him. He sits there reading in his bed, and Bosch goes like, "Stop pretending you can read."
That's right. Yeah.
And then
they have a really good relationship.
And then he's like, "How are you?" And then Craig's like, they took the tube out so I can talk, and the boss is like, shit. And you think like, oh man, he's really sorry for Craig, but then he goes, shit, can they put it back in?
Yeah. That's the really good kind of ball busting kind of thing word between them, which is good. He stays in the hospital because at the next bit he goes to visit Brasher, who presumably in the same hospital. I put down with 2 exclamation marks. She's high as fuck.
Oh yeah. She's I don't know. She's got just cracked ribs. Like, why the hell did they give her like morphine?
Yeah, I don't know, but it's some painkillers that she thinks are really good. And she tells him that Irving, asks if like any who's been to see her, and she says Irving has been through with pounds apparently. And then she says her father's due to visit. He asks her for her story basically, but I've put again doesn't look convinced when she tells it. But we know this because we know that he didn't. He saw. You see it in the scene. He saw the guy's hands on the wall, both of them. So he knows that the guy didn't grab her gun because his hands were on the wall at the time the gunshot went off.
Right.
So that's not a mystery to us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is something they make clear.
But I think he's hoping
she'll
admit to it, and she's obviously not going to.
Right, and they make clear throughout the whole thing that Bosch has seen this, like from the beginning, even though his eyes are dodgy. I think I don't know what I mean. I don't know what that's. I think in the book it serves a very distinct purpose in the story, but here I don't get it. It's just like for Bosch so that he can still say I don't know or something.
I was going to say I think it's an excuse. He could use that as an excuse to say he didn't really see what happened.
Yeah,
which would be the easy way out. But I think the point of all this, from what I took from it, is that Bosch, being Bosch and the character that he's supposed to be, he has to do whatever's right by the law or whatever. Or whatever's right in his own mind, which in his case is like he knows that Stokes didn't try and shoot her, so he's not going to say, "Oh, I cop out and say like, oh, I didn't see anything."
Right, because he's
when
Bosch.
he knows he should say, when he knows he should say what he did see, which is that he didn't grab the gun.
Yeah, and even though he's a scumbag, Bosch is going to do the right thing. Also, like this, what I think again here, Brescia is now like she's pulling these shenanigans. And so far Bosch doesn't really mind, but now she's like impacting his case, and I think this is where you will see that Bosch will rather sacrifice his relationship with her than his case thing. Because remember, Stokes is still like, I don't know, is their main lead in the Delacroix case, which is Bosch's case. He's not really on the Waits case, so he's trying to solve that. Also, when she doesn't admit and he just leaves, you can see him like walk down the corridor, and he's like really sad.
Yeah, because he was hoping that he wouldn't have to. Yeah. That is sad, Bosch, definitely. So after that, we end up back at Waits' house or whatever, where his mother is falls over in the corridor as she's walking along and blows like a whistle that she has to summon.
Oh, that's so annoying.
Yeah, he does respond, and he does seem genuinely kind of really concerned, and she says to him, "What would I?" This thing that she does basically through their whole relationship, from what you can see from this, is like she keeps saying to him, I'd be lost without you. What would I do without you? And basically trying to guilt him into not going out because she's always pissed off when he says he wants to go out somewhere. Yeah. And like all the rest of it. But there's a thing in this scene which I'm going to call us back to later, because there's something that you see in this scene that is significant later. So remember this. I'm going to call it back later. But for now, I'll leave it and people can guess what they think that is. Or that I saw anyway.
I don't know. I don't know what you saw, so you'll have to.
Yeah. No, I'll call it out later.
So
I'll do a Harry Bosch. I'll do a Bosch. Oh no, I'll do a Columbo on you. I'll go. So there's just one thing that you didn't notice in that scene half an hour ago.
If you pull a Bosch, you will have to have a photo of it that you carry around, and you'll always pull that photo out immediately. Yeah. We'll come to that later. Bosch does that later, or maybe in the next episode. I can't remember if it was this or next one. But like the one thing I noticed is that Waits is getting tired of his mom.
Yeah,
he's
that's
looking
worn off. Yeah,
pissed off. And he has looked pissed off from the beginning, but it's getting worse.
Yeah, and he's got the whole problem that he can't. It's Christmas
Oh
at
yeah,
this
yeah,
point,
yeah.
and he keeps telling her he can't get her glasses because it's Christmas. And then he's like, "I'll get them the day after Christmas. I'll get them the day after Christmas." So that's not going to last very long. That excuse, and at some
Yeah, and
point,
she's
she's
on
going to
the
want to know
TV.
why he can't, why he
Right.
won't let her see because she's trying to read and stuff, and she can't read because she hasn't got her
And she
glasses.
doesn't for people if you don't remember, she knows him by another name. His real name isn't Raynard Waits. So on the
No,
TV, she hears Raynard Waits all the time, and
so
they
she
show
doesn't.
his mugshot, but she can't see the mugshot.
Mm.
So the second she sees his picture, the game's up.
Oh yeah, yeah, very much so. And he knows that, so he keeps making up the excuses about stuff. Yeah, we'll get back to some of that later. I think I like to weirdly because I'm not usually into like shows that have too many kind of politics things in them, but I really like that this scene that we're going to talk about next. This whole episode is very heavily kind of linked in with like what Irving's doing, what Irv's doing, and the
Yeah, yeah.
political thing, and O'Shea and all the rest of it. So we see O'Shea is doing like a press conference. I put O'Shea is glad handing at a press conference with the existing chief, which is the one that Irv wants to replace, presumably. Irv is watching from a distance, as always. I put Irv is watching, as always. He discusses it with Wash as he's going to walk away. As he walk away, he discusses it with Wash, who's his driver, Washington, I think his name is, but they call him Wash. And he talks about weights, and he says, "We've got to catch this little motherfucker before he brings us all down."
Yeah.
But the way he says it is so badass as he gets in his car. He's like, "We're going to catch that little motherfucker before he brings us all down," which is good.
I wrote that down too.
Yeah. Go on. So go on, and you take the next one.
Bosch visits Billets at her home, to which she says, "The one day of the year that I go in late for work." So this is Christmas. Well, tomorrow is Christmas. They're wrapping presents.
They're on Christmas Eve, yeah. But there's this whole thing which I thought was interesting, which makes sense when you see the rest of the scene. But the implication is that he can't talk to her about it at the station because everybody else in the station, he wants him to just say that Brasher was, to support Brasher's story.
Yeah, everybody's on Brasher's side.
Because it's like you always support the fellow cop,
Well, and I think they generally do like her because she's always like. She's a bit too eager, but she's always putting herself like you get the feeling that she pulls extra shifts and, she's not.
Maybe, but she's very keen her character's interesting and as it goes on, it develops a bit more. But I don't know. I don't think I like her very much because she's always really keen to shoot someone. She just wants to shoot people.
Well, I don't think
likes Bosch because she's always asking him how many people he's shot and going, "Oh, your wounds are really sexy." And, she seems to be into the idea of shooting people.
I don't think that's her thing. I don't think her thing is shooting other people. I think she wants to become a detective and she wants to be a hero. So she goes on about the medals. She wants medals or whatever.
True, yeah.
I think the thing she did is she shot herself
by mistake.
on purpose. No, on purpose.
Oh, you think it's on purpose?
I think she shot herself on purpose so that she can put the guy away, and then she's like this hero who took a bullet. I think that's her problem. I might be more sensitive to this because they go on in the book a lot. When Bosch was in her apartment and there was this picture of the white
great white shark.
And in the book,
she took it.
right, in the book they go on about how she does like scuba diving and free climbing and white sharks and all this, and has a bit of a death wish.
Yeah.
Or like not a death wish, but she likes
She's
that.
a thrill seeker.
She's a thrill seeker,
Adrenaline
yes.
junkie.
And that goes together with like her being shot. So I think that's her thing. But you're certainly right. She's a bit. I don't like her either.
I think though,
but I think she's liked by the guys at the station.
She is now, but she wasn't before. Because if you think about earlier on, when like he's talking to Mank and stuff, Bosch, this is about and they're all like, "Oh, really a boot Bosch" and all this shit, giving him all the shit. She doesn't seem very popular. Edge doesn't like her. The other,
but Edge doesn't like her because
But then Edge does like her in this because of that. And everybody else in the station is like, "Wow, you're great, Brasher. You're okay," and all this. And she's like basically almost high-fiving people as she goes down the fucking
But the thing is, Edge doesn't like her because he's a rules guy, and she's breaking the rules because she wants fame fast.
Yeah,
and now he just assumes that she was right. I think he can't imagine. He can't even imagine that she just made that up and shot herself. I think the guys can't imagine that.
So, meanwhile, back at the scene that we were in, which because a lot of this is going to come to stuff that we're discussing, he tells Billets that Bosch, this is, tells Billets when he's in her kitchen that he saw Stokes' hands, both of Stokes' hands, on the wall when the gun went off. And he basically tells her that Brasher is lying, to which she's like, shit, what are we going to do? And then he says to her, she tried to cuff him and her gun went off. Either way, she's done. Or maybe she says that to him, I don't know. But basically,
she says that, yeah.
Yeah, so what happened, because she's got these two NSATs, whatever you call them, which is like black marks on her kind of
unsatisfactory report, yeah.
That's it. And if you get 3, then you're done, basically. So what Billets says to him, which is important actually for the whole episode, is this situation that like Brasher is now in, is if she says that she lied or she got it wrong and she accidentally shot herself, she'll get another unsat and then she's done. And then whatever happens, it's not really going to work.
No, actually, if she said if her story sticks with him grabbing her gun,
then if Bosch supports it, then I suppose she's all right.
No, she's not. If that happens, she gets an unset.
She
gets an unset for that because he got her gun.
Hold of her gun. Yeah.
Gets an unset, is out. But if she lies and says, if she doesn't, if she's truthful and says she shot herself
in the leg,
then she made a wrong statement and she's out anyway. So the thing Brasher says, Billet says, is that Brasher's out anyway.
Yeah, what she says exactly is either way she's done.
Right. Yes.
Same thing. Yeah. So she's kind of knackered either way, which is important for kind of the politics.
But Bosch just is still sad.
Yeah, sad Bosch. There's a lot of sad Bosch in this.
Yeah.
Sad Harry. Which is a shame. And then there's a lot of this back and forth to Waite's place with his mother, and it says so. The next scene is back to Waite's and mother. I've called them Waite's and mother. Which sounds a bit like a folk group or something. He's negotiating on the phone. At first, I thought he was negotiating a cable package, but you learn.
Yes, I thought that too.
He's discussing with the woman at some care home or wherever it is, where he's trying to put his mother realize what their cable package is like.
Yeah, because she likes her TV.
Yeah, and then she shouts him, and he just hangs up on the woman he's on the phone with as he walks into the other room. She's really good at being annoying as well. It's good acting. I actually looked up the actor, and she's not as old as she's portraying in this. Yeah,
she's doing that quite well. David.
But she still goes on about her glasses in this scene, which is what we've already talked about, and that's when he says, "I'll get them the day after Christmas," because the idea is today it's like Christmas Eve, and so he's giving himself 2 days at most, to kind of do something about this. Which is probably, I would guess, why he's trying to put her in a nursing home, because she's always giving him the whole, like, what will I do without you? I'll just die here on my own and all this stuff. So he's like, he knows he's either going to get killed or go away or something's going to happen to him, clearly. So he's like, maybe I should put her in a home.
But the thing is also, he can't really, I was thinking about this, right? He can't really put her in a nursing home because she's just going to rock up there. They're going to recognize him.
Yeah, I did think that. Although, well, we'll get to this later. He apparently has some disguises at his disposal, which I'm
he's not a master of disguise. He's not as good as Bosch.
No, I'll wear a giant cowboy hat. That'll keep me suspicious.
I'll wear a cowboy hat over a hoodie. Like I'll put the hood up and then I'll wear a cowboy hat over that.
Yeah.
Why not take a clown nose with that?
Yeah, and generally looks suspicious as well, because he's trying not to let people see his face. He keeps kind of looking at the floor and putting his hand on his face.
And his weird, creepy beard.
He's no James Bond, let's put it that way. I did put down that she's still apparently learning French, his mother, but she's really bad at French.
Oh God, her that accent, like that. Yeah. That's not French.
No, but also she gets the words wrong as well. I don't know a lot.
Oh yeah.
Good at French, but even I know enough to go, that's not the right word.
She says s'il vous plaît, I think, and
she says s'il tu play all the time, which is not really what people say. Tu does mean you, but nobody says s'il tu play, and she says it really bad in that kind of accent, like a really bad. S'il tu play.
Yeah, it's like s'il vous plaît.
Yeah, exactly.
More like that.
She's crap at French.
Yeah,
is what we learned from this.
She is.
Yeah. So yeah, he's still fobbing her off, and then we go back to
Bosch.
We see Harry. He's on the bridge thing over the
Yeah,
little canal
in
by
Venice,
Brasher.
where Brusher's house is, and
And he's smoking, which
he's
implies that he's
smoking.
tense.
He's stressed. Also, when he goes and talks to Brasher and they go out on the porch, I
Mm.
noticed something very important. He's not wearing his gun. He's
Mm.
wearing another gun. A
Mm.
little revolver, looks like a Colt Cobra.
That's interesting. When the gun, his main usual sidearm is like a big part of his kind of ex-military. This is my military service weapon. Blah blah blah. It's weird that from the whoever does the props and the continuity and stuff would just let him have a different gun on. You'd think they'd go, no, he's got to have his gun.
It must be something. It looks like it's just like
backup gun. It's my backup gun.
No, it looks like it's very small. Like the Cobra is a very small revolver. It looks like it's easier to conceal. It looks like it's just like second gun that he would wear concealed. But it's like not like it's stuck in his waistband. It's like it's this whole clamshell holster thing. Like he's got a special holster for that. So it's not like you don't think it's
secret.
No, it is quite secret. Like you could just wear a coat over that, and you wouldn't see it, and like it wouldn't bulge out whatever suit he's wearing aside, but like his other gun's really noticeable. But what I mean is like they obviously did props for this. This is like prop work. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't like, hey, we don't have that other gun. Give him some random other gun.
The prop guy's like, oh, I've just left it at home.
Yeah.
And never mind. We just get another gun. It's
just
fine.
left the Kimber at home. Just take that gun.
Yeah, just give him a sword or something. No one will notice. Give him like a katana.
Got that blaster from Star Wars lying around. Let's use that.
Yeah, that'd be good. So what's interesting in this is I put down. So they're talking outside. He tells her a story which is basically the same as what it's a very badly thinly veiled like analogy for what she's done. And he tells this bullshit story about, I knew this guy who accidentally shot himself in the leg, basically. And then obviously she realizes what's happening. And she says, you're going to back me, Harry. Right. And he goes, that's not what happened, Julia. And then she goes, fuck you, Harry. You're a hypocrite. And then storms in. And it's kind of, it doesn't end so well for them there.
Well, I can kind of see her point.
Well, she needs him to back the story. Yeah.
Well, and she says he's a hypocrite because he is bending rules all the time. Like, and from her vantage points, like, what the fuck, Harry? We're together, we just fucked like a day ago. And now you're like, you're bending rules all the time, but you're not willing to bend the rules for me once.
Yeah, but that's the thing about Bosch, though, isn't it? I mean, that's the whole point of the character is that he has he has his own set of like what's right and wrong.
Yeah.
And
what she did is definitely wrong.
Yeah, and because he's not willing to deviate ever from his own moral code of like that's wrong, this is right, whatever. I think I can understand what you mean. She's pissed off because she's seen him break the law as it is for his own moral code in the past, but she thinks he should be willing to do the same for her. But what she doesn't realize is his moral code is more important than the law to him, which is the point of this.
I think she doesn't get that.
Let's not forget he's got the blue religion. So there you go. That's a nice callback as well. Yeah, so that's not gone well. And then the next scene, which obviously leads.
I wanted to point out before we do that, I like him. Like he's like Veliver is doing a really good job of showing like his inner pain, like Bosch's inner pain.
I mean he does really great in every episode, but particularly in this episode, he's very good.
He does a lot just with his face.
He does, yeah.
He's good when he does that.
He's a good face actor. So then the next scene, which is only short really, is him having now spoken to Brasher and she knows what's going to happen. He's now gone and he's talking to the FID guy again, but this time he's actually telling him what he saw, which is that the suspect's hands were on the wall. And that kind of wraps that little bit up nicely because you know that he's like, in his very Harry Bosch way, he's kind of gone to her. He started off by fobbing off the FID people. Were going, oh, I don't know, I can't remember. And just so buy himself time so he can go and ask her to change her story or ask her what her story is, hoping that she'll say the right thing. She says the wrong thing. And then he goes to tell her that basically he's going to tell a contradictory story before he goes to do it because that's his moral thing of what he thinks he should do rather than her finding out directly from somewhere else that he didn't say the same story, which is very Bosch, I think.
It's very
peak Bosch.
Peak Bosch. I like that.
Peak Bosch. That's another one. Yeah. Go on then. So that's not much of a scene, that one.
No. And then we have weights. and it looks like he's out on the prowl. Like his mom's asleep, so he goes out, and he's driving through the red light district again through Hollywood. You'd think like he's on the prowl, and he is, because he then sees a guy on the side of the road with a champagne bottle. Also, Capitol Records building in the background here, I noticed.
Yeah. It's nice. It's a nice scene, yeah.
And so he pretends to be a police officer, uses Crate's badge, and to write the guy up for open container, like basically public drinking.
Violation. Yeah. He's like, "What? Hey guy, hey buddy, what are you drinking?" or something, as if he's like trying to be friendly. And then he goes, "Hey," and he flashes the badge, and the guy's like, "Oh shit." And then he tells him to get in the car, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And then
did you notice what the guy was drinking, by the way? Speaking of James Bond, it's not any champagne.
Oh, go on.
It's clearly Dom Perignon.
Well, that's not cheap.
I have a bottle right there. I'm looking at it. I kept the case. No, it's not cheap. I can tell you.
Yeah, it's not cheap. The guy's quite smart though, which is interesting, because maybe he's not as drunk as Waits hopes he is when he sees him with the bottle. I don't know.
The bottle's pretty empty.
Yeah, well, he's not as stupid as he thinks he is, because he starts to question it. He's very smartly goes, "Why are you in an unmarked car?" And the guy's like, "I'm in an undercover operation." He's like, "Undercover to catch like people with open container violations."
What's the NAPD
vibe?
doing?
And you're like, he's clearly put this together quite quickly, that this guy probably isn't actually a police officer.
He is. He reminded me a bit of me. I think he does his best
Does he have
thinking. That, and he does his best thinking when he's a bit tipsy. You know?
That's true. It could be. I can relate to that, actually. It's like when you play pool, and when you've had like say 3 beers, you're amazing at pool, but if you have too many more, you're fucked. And if you haven't had any, you don't get.
I also liked his so he's like well dressed, right? So
he looks like he's come from quite a serious party.
Yeah, probably also, at the Capitol Records building, and just took a Dom Perignon with him.
Well, I was just going to say, if we're going to go all bosh on it, you'd have to say the fact that he's got a bottle of Dom Perignon implies that he's come from a fairly good party, because, it's not like,
And he looks a bit. I was like, he looks a bit Johnny Depp, bad guy. Like in the current, like in his bad guy. What's that?
He's younger than Johnny Depp. I would
he is, but I was liking the beard and whatever. He looks like a bit like, what's that Sauvage, that perfume ad
the pads he does where he digs a hole in the desert for no apparent reason.
I mean,
like,
obviously,
what is this? And it's just like, I drive into the desert and and you're like, and he says all this meaningless bullshit like they always do on aftershave adverts and perfume adverts, where it's like, my life is how I want it, and blah blah blah, and he's actually he's driving into the desert and digging a hole for no apparent reason, and then it just goes Sauvage, and you're like, what is that about?
when I saw that, I thought I knew what that was about.
Oh, right.
I thought it's like
something in the desert.
Well, something, what Johnny Depp was recently
dignity,
famous for,
burying his dignity.
No, it's just like
desert.
I hit my wife once too hard, and now I have to drive into the desert.
Yeah, I think he's buried his self-respect in the desert because he does some shitty adverts. Anyway, let's not get onto that.
But I thought that guy looked like Johnny Depp from that advert.
Yeah,
anyway.
a bit.
I
would agree. But it goes badly wrong for Waits, because
even though he's practiced a lot.
Yeah, he's shit though. He's not very good, because he fucks up the whole taser bag taser.
But what he does is he pulls the bag. And in that second, an ambulance drives past, and Waits obviously
he thinks it might be police.
Also the siren sounds. I think he thinks it's the police, and so he hesitates with tasing the guy. Meanwhile,
the guy fights back pretty effectively.
Yeah, because he's like, what's that, drunken boxing?
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He's good at that.
I put down, the guy fights back and gets away when an ambulance goes past, spooking Waits. Which is basically he hesitates for a second.
Maybe the guy is James Bond. He's at his best when he's down the bottle of Dom Perignon.
Maybe he's up for a game of poker now. Like, fuck you! I'm gonna go play some poker with some supervillains.
With that guy who cries blood.
Shaken, not stirred, motherfucker. Anyway, so yeah, so that goes badly for Waits.
Well, he
Obviously,
goes. I
but
like how the guy then basically evades, Waits in the car, but then doesn't run away. He starts attacking Waits and strangling him, shouting "Motherfucker!"
yeah, he's good actually. He fights back really well. Yeah,
Yeah.
and also the significance, obviously, later on, which obviously straight away you think, so he's going to report this, and then they'll know that Stokes is hunting and all the rest of it. Sorry, not Stokes. Waits is hunting again, because the guy gets away at the end, and Waits. He's shit at disguises. He's shit at other things. He's shit at the taser bag maneuver. He's very bad at saying things like, I'm an undercover operation, which is totally unconvincing. So he's not a very effective serial killer, really, which is probably good, because then he'd be killed loads more people. But yeah, he's kind of like a bumbling serial killer almost in this, and you think, don't feel sorry for him.
I think the pattern is he can't kill anybody who's not a prostitute.
Yeah, that's true.
For some reason.
Yeah.
So then he, like the other guy, starts strangling him, and Wade's only defense is to throw him out of the car and drive away.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, the guy goes, "Motherfucker, come back! I'm gonna beat you up."
So, couldn't he still tase the guy? Like, don't tase me, bro.
I don't think he was thinking.
Rather than throw the guy out of the car, he could have just carried on trying to tase him.
I don't think he was clear. I think he was getting afraid of the guy. I do like how the guy's like, "Come back! I'm gonna finish you off."
Effectively. Yeah, so that goes badly. And then we head back to the station where Stokes is being released because Bosch has said that he had his hands on the wall and, whatever. And Bosch is outside waiting to escort him. He's outside the room, which, basically he knows that. So at first, Stokes doesn't like the fact that he's there. He's like, "God, I can't get away from you." And then Bosch is like, "You probably should be thankful that I'm here, because everybody else in the station wants to fucking kill him." Basically, is the implication. But he says he keeps showing him the photo of the kids, and he wants names. He's like, "This one's you. Who is these people? What are the names in the photo?" And he says something like Tom Parker. He says maybe Tom Parker as the name of one of the kids or something, which is also Colonel Tom Parker is Elvis's manager. So
really, okay,
yeah, Colonel Tom Parker, very famously Elvis.
Well, I know this is the name, the Colonel, but I didn't know he was called Tom Parker.
Colonel Tom Parker. Yeah. Although. And I'll put this in a link to the show notes so people can read about it. He wasn't American. He was an Eastern European who'd fled somewhere like Croatia. It's somewhere in Eastern Europe anyway that he came from. He went to America, changed his name from, some Slovakian, whatever it was, Slavic
to Colonel Tom Parker.
To Colonel Tom Parker.
No, really, to Colonel?
But he was fleeing. He'd committed a crime in his home country.
He's from the Netherlands. Andreas Cornelis van Kreek.
Oh, was he Dutch?
Yeah, he is Dutch.
But he was fleeing from a crime that he'd committed, and he changed his name to Tom Parker to make himself like inconspicuous in this new country to get away from the crime, and then became Elvis's manager. Well, he was quite instrumental, but he also ripped Elvis off, and apparently was.
He did serve in the U.S. Army.
Oh,
apparently.
Fair enough. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, so that's
at Fort Shafter in Hawaii. What kind of a name is that?
Oh, if you're gonna serve in the army, though, do it in Hawaii. That's the boss place.
Yeah, but like, so where
surfing on the beach and.
So where you putting me? You son of fuck! You're going straight to Fort Shafter.
Yeah, but it's in Hawaii. I'd be up for that.
Yeah, but you're being shafted.
They're going to send you to Arkansas or something. I might not be as pleased. Oh, no, I don't know. I don't know Arkansas very well. But, I'm sure there are Wisconsin. I don't know. There are places I would find less interesting to be in than Hawaii, I think.
Okay, apparently he was a murder suspect in Breda.
There you go. He was he was suspected of murder, yeah. And lots of people still contest that he probably did it based on evidence and stuff.
I just love that name. I'm just going to change my name to Colonel Fabian von Churchill.
Oh, von Churchill's better, yeah.
And Colonel.
Colonel, yeah. Anyway, he leaves. He tells Stokes to go out the back door, or go out the front door. Sorry, because he's like, you're going to be in trouble if you're not in public because the police are.
Why did he want to go out the back door anyway? Nobody goes out the back door.
Yeah, I don't know.
Also, it smells like vomit because there's the drunk tank is there. You know
Yeah.
that if you read the
Yeah.
books. Didn't you know that?
That's true, yeah.
Didn't you read the Bosch
Meanwhile,
books?
Waits and Mother are back having TV dinners for Christmas.
Oh yeah,
So it's
yeah, yeah.
Christmas Day now. And they're having like basically those microwave dinners for Christmas.
And she's
And
fucking annoying.
I put down, she keeps talking French and going on about choir music, about the choir music
Yeah,
that's in
little
the.
angel.
And she keeps saying things to him like, you could be fluent and all this stuff, which plays in later to what we learn about him. But she doesn't, she doesn't understand why he doesn't want to be more French, if you like, which is interesting. Yeah, and that there's a lot of quick kind of cuts between the scenes here. So it then cuts to it's Christmas Day, as we know. Surprise, surprise. Harry is in the office working. He's got nothing else to do. Going
And
over a case.
Earth turns up in a sweater.
Yeah, that's after though. It cuts back. So there's some quick cuts here. So we get that, and then we quickly cut back to Waits and the mother again. She's fallen asleep. Or she has been asleep. She's just woken up, and he's going out. And then she gives him the whole, "What do you mean you're going out?" And she's really pissed off. And he just says, "I'm going out for a little bit, Mark, to see some friends." And she's like, "Well, take the cake to your friends."
Take the fucking cake, she says.
Yeah, take the fucking cake to your friends. And she's really pissed off that he's going out, as she always is. Then we cut back to Irv, who's the smoothest motherfucker alive, who pops up in an open collar, no tie. With a jumper on, it's like, "Bosh, I thought I'd find you here," or something like that. I know, and it's like, damn, Irv's in the house. He's wearing a nice jumper and no tie. This is casual Irv.
Casual.
So Bosch tells Irv why he let Stokes go, because he's like, he tells him that Brashard's story is wrong. He doesn't say much to that, but then this is the crucial bit. Irv then says to Bosch that he's assigning him into the Waits case.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What about the task force?" And he's like, "Well, they'll still work it separately, but
independent of the task force."
Independent of the task force, and he basically tells him the task force has come up with nothing.
He's basically special investigator Bosch now.
There's a brilliant line in this as well, which closes this scene really, where he says, he tells him to investigate Waits, and Bosch says, "What about the Delacroix case? What am I going to do about that?" And he says, Irv replies in his smoothness, he's like, "Keep working it. As far as I'm concerned, both cases are linked until we can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that Waits didn't murder that boy." And then he's like, "Irv out."
Mic drop.
Like, mic drop, Irv out. Yeah.
You are right though. I love the fact that actor has such amazing gravitas. The way he just waltzes into a scene.
Oh, God,
he's a bit like, I've been watching Star Trek Next Generation a lot over the holidays, and he's a bit like Patrick Stewart. The way he just comes into a scene, like pulls all the attention towards him, and then like Irv out. It's like Picard out. It's like,
yeah, make it so.
Like even if the scene goes on after he left, the scene's over. It's like when Picard leaves, doesn't matter what they say afterwards. Like,
oh no, that's like the main thing. As we've discussed in the past, Irv is the master of the slow roll down the window and immediately staring at you as the window goes down, kind of thing. He's endlessly cool. So Bosch is now on the Waits case, which is important, obviously. So we cut to Bosch, who's at Waits' old apartment.
I also love how Bosch, when he assigns him, is like, "What about pounds?" And Irv's like, "Let me worry about pounds."
That's right. Yeah. So he's looking through his Waits stuff in his apartment, which he's no longer at, obviously. And he has medical books and books on drugs and lots of stuff about bones.
Also has a paper. It looks like it's like a paper decoration. It's like a paper roll or something, with like a worm on it. It looks like really weird.
He has some weird shit.
He has weird shit.
But he's a weird guy. So as Bosch looks at one of the books with the pictures of skulls and stuff.
So I think he can only go to that apartment, which is under surveillance now, because before he wasn't on the case, right?
Well, I was going to say he wasn't on the case, was he? So now if somebody says, "What are you doing here?" he can be, "I'm working on the Waits case." But Bosch being Bosch, he picks up the first book he finds, it seems, in the shelf, opens it, and then like pictures fall out, and he sees that they're pictures that match the ones in the book.
I think he noticed that it was the only French book in the case.
Maybe. Yeah, he's very clever like that. He seems to have quite a depressing Christmas, Bosch, though, because
Yeah, definitely.
after this, the next scene is in a Chinese restaurant, Christmas Day, and Bosch is there on his own, and the Chinese guy walks over and goes like, "Happy Christmas, Harry," or "Merry Christmas,
Meanwhile,
Harry."
Bosch is
Like,
on his own reading a book full of skulls.
yeah, basically in a very empty restaurant.
And
then
the guy knows him. So my theory is Bosch does this for every Christmas.
Probably, yeah. Or
Goes
he eats
there
it
and
could well
reads
be.
like a murder book or something.
He eats a lot of Chinese in that place. Yeah, and then he walks outside, and the phone rings, and it's Eleanor Wish, who's his ex-wife, who phones basically to ask why he hasn't spoken to Maddie, the daughter, and then she tells him, you broke the promise because he said he'd go back before Christmas, and he hasn't. And then he says he's sorry, but then she just like calls Maddie and goes, "Your dad's on the phone for you," or whatever, and makes it look like he's actually rung up, which he hasn't. So he asks Maddie if she'll come to visit him in LA. But then as he's doing that, another, the whole call waiting thing, another call thing beeps, and obviously we know who it's going to be. And I put down, this is interesting, this is my critique of this. I put down, it's Waits being a dick as usual. On the phone, basically.
Calls him being a dick, throws the burner out the window.
Yeah, and he says things like, he keeps trying to, he thinks he's clever, and he's really not very clever, and he keeps trying to rattle Bosch's cage all the time, and he says to him, "I think you know how this ends. You and me, Harry, dogs from the same kennel. I kill people, you kill people." And it's like, no, he's trying to compare himself to Bosch all the time. But then Bosch asks for a trace on the call.
Which he can do now because he's on the case.
Yeah, and because Irv said you can have whatever you want. They go, "Oh, you need an affidavit or whatever," and he goes, "Just call Chief Irving's give me the special code." And they're like, "Fuck, we're not going to talk to Irv about it. Just have the trace."
We need to talk to a judge. The judge will just ring up Irv. Like,
yeah, and he'll go, "What the fuck do you want?" Yeah, Irv out. Do the fucking trace. Yeah. So but he gets the trace on the cell, and then he starts to, obviously goes in pursuit. And when he gets there, they find a kid who picked up the phone in the street, basically. And Waits is obviously not there. And Harry is like, "Fuck." He looks really pissed off. He doesn't say "fuck," but he kind of does a really
he mouths "fuck" as he walks towards the camera. Very nicely done as well. It's Titus Welliver. Mm-hmm. Good at that shit.
That's very true. And then back to the station again, where Harry's talking to Edgar.
When I first saw him, I thought he's good as a bad guy and stuff, in Sons of Anarchy. But I was he has this thing where you think, well, he doesn't really do much facial impressions.
Oh, no, I think he's very...
Well, the more you watch him, I noticed that you might...
Eyebrows.
You might think he's not a good actor and he doesn't do much. But the thing is, he's very subtle. If you really start watching him, and, I've been seeing scenes now several times, and I keep, scrubbing back and looking at them. And he does a lot with his face. It's just very subtle. I really like it.
He's a really good actor. Yeah, he is a good actor. I know what you mean. Yeah, at first you don't think it takes a while to appreciate quite what he's doing, I suppose, which is interesting. So back at the station now, Edgar's there. Harry's talking to him about the book with the bones in it, and Edgar says, "All these bones right under the streets of Paris, and nobody knew." And then
so it's a book about the catacombs in Paris,
yeah. And Harry suspects that Waits has visited it as a tourist and taken the pictures of his own that he found that fell out to match it. Now this is where it gets interesting, because he says he thinks Waits might have been there as a tourist. Now, if we jump back to the scene earlier, that I refer the honourable gentleman to the earlier comment about the mother falling over. She falls over in front of a massive
poster
that says
yes.
"Visit Paris."
Yeah, now, one of those travel posters.
I put it to you, sir, that is evidence that somebody somewhere has visited Paris, that he might have brought the poster back for her, because she's obsessed with France.
Yeah, or they both
case closed. Out.
Or they both
out.
Or they both visited.
Yeah, maybe they both visited, but it does back up this suspicion that we know about the poster. Obviously, Harry doesn't, but it really immediately made me think, oh God, yeah, there's a Visit Paris poster.
So, and Kiss checks this and says if he went to Paris or overseas, he went under another name. So I think he went under his real name, and I think it might
Maybe.
have been with his mother, or just a while ago, before he assumed the new identity.
Yeah.
Because he must have had like a passport under his other name.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, under his adopted name, presumably that he has. With the other
David, whatever his mother's name is.
He was desperate to be French.
That's her last name. His name is actually David, desperate to be French.
Yeah, it's a double-barreled name, hyphenated.
Maybe she is French. I don't know. I get so
not with the way she speaks French. I don't.
Well, I think that's that's the actor. Also,
okay,
we're from Europe, so people watching this in America might not even notice. But I think maybe so my understanding was, I haven't read the book, so if I read Echo Park, I can probably tell you, because I probably say in the book. But my understanding is that she was French, or like her parents emigrated from France or whatever, and that that she's close to that. And when she adopted him, she wanted to bring him up in that tradition, and he never really wanted to.
Okay,
that's why I think they visited Paris together as well. But
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but I think this.
Although I don't think it's the actress being bad. I don't think that's right, because I actually think she's quite a good actress, and I think I think you're supposed to think that the mother is bad at French, because she seems to be bad at French, and it pisses him off that she's always going on about being French, and she's bad at it. I think that's another thing that I think winds him up a bit.
Well, that could all be right. My theory is another theory. My theory is she is a good actress, but it's like one of these things about acting is like there are just some people who can't do accents.
Oh yeah,
and other languages, and there's people who are great at it, and other actors just can't do it for the life of them. And maybe this being an American show, maybe they just didn't pick up on that. Maybe they thought it was good enough.
Maybe
for the
I still think
American
it's
market.
probably deliberate, but I don't know. Who knows? We'll have to see. When you've read the book, we'll know, so you can report back on that. So Harry seems to continue his spate of arguing with women all the time. He goes to meet Eleanor in the diner, some kind of diner.
That's a nice diner, though. That's like an old school Norms. Looks good.
Yeah, and he says to her, "You came all this way to bust my balls," and she says, "Don't flatter yourself. I came to play cards or whatever." And again, there's a lot of quick cuts in this. So you get in the cut in between Waits and his mother, and now between
the
Harry
mother
and
with,
Eleanor.
as I wrote down, the fucking whistle.
Yeah, and she wants to know where her prednisone is, because she's run out, and then they can't find it, and she's like, "What am I going to do, David?" And she's panicking and all that shit, and he's obviously looking a bit pissed off with that. Then it cuts very quickly back to Harry and Eleanor again, who are about to get into a big fight about parenting.
Because Maddie had an accident, and it's like, oh, she's just big shook up by the airbag. Airbag! And then it's like, what's the airbag? And then what else did you say?
Actually, I'm on the wrong scene, now that I realize.
I
am, because that's a later scene.
Notes.
Sorry,
that's
rewind. Rewind. This is a later scene where they don't have the argument.
Too many cuts. Oh, this is where he gets the notepad.
Yeah, so he's asking her for her help reading this book, or telling him about
doing profiling again.
Because she's a profiler. Yeah. And she tells him the title of the book translates to "Stop, here is the Empire of Death."
And she is really good at French, by the way.
Yeah.
That was some really good French when she read the title. That was good.
Yeah, so he's trying to get, because she's a profiler, former profiler, he's trying to get information on a profile about Waits from her. He shows her the photos that Waits took, and she says that Waits could be using the bones of his previous victims to kind of make his own version of the catacombs, which does
build like an ossuary,
yeah, like a tribute almost. Which is interesting, and he keeps trying to get her to kind of help more. And
so she says maybe he kept the victims.
Yeah, and she says, "I'm strictly a card player now," and she resists the plea to kind of get back into helping with profiling. Meanwhile, we're cutting back and forth between this dilemma of Waits trying to get fucking drugs for his mother. This is where we get to the bit where Waits is at a pharmacy with a fucking awful disguise, is what I wrote down.
So he's wearing
cowboy hat,
a hoodie,
Yeah.
sunglasses, has
And
the
a
hood
huge
of
cowboy
the
hat.
hoodie up, and a straw
Yeah.
cowboy hat on top.
Not great.
I
And
think
then
he
his face
knows
comes
this
on
as well
TV, and
because,
he kind of freaks out and just
yeah,
leaves.
I think when he sees himself on TV, he notices that his disguise is not up to
Well,
scratch.
yeah, and also the guy who stood in front of him in the queue turns round and looks at him a bit suspiciously as he's walking away, as if he's like, "Hey, is that the guy off the TV?"
In a
In a
massive
massive
cowboy
hat.
hat and a hoodie.
Yeah. So he fucks that up. Again, he's not great at a lot of this. And then and then it's back to the station again, where Edgar is watching a video of Waits when he was in the van getting escorted. And then Harry has his kind of moment where he's like, he's just thought of something. And he says, "The trunk, I missed it before." And that's a big thing.
Before we get into that, I just wanted to one thing quickly. Sorry, I forgot. Eleanor gives Bosch's birthday present.
Oh, yeah, the present from Maddie. Yeah,
from Maddie, which is really nice. It's like a custom-made notebook cover, like leather notebook cover, with his badge on it, with his badge number, 2997. And what I really like is he opens it up and there's a picture of Maddie, but also it says on the top, you can barely read it. There's engraved, "Everybody counts" or "Nobody counts."
Oh yeah, that's like his,
which is kind of Bosch's.
It's true.
Bosch's
I never know.
mantra.
Well spotted. I didn't notice that. I may have spotted the huge poster that said "Visit France, visit Paris," but I didn't spot the very fine lettering on that.
I think that is just a one-off, because I think Maddie can't know that. Like in the lore of the show, she can't know that. I think he says that at some point.
He does say that. He does say it.
He said it in the books, definitely. It's about his mother. It's like when they talk about his mother, why she was the prostitute. Why do you care about these prostitute murders? Is this because of your mother? And then he says, "Everybody counts" or "Nobody counts." That's kind of his thing.
It is very much, yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point, and it goes back to his moral code thing that he's very much strictly lives by. And then we're getting towards the end of the episode now, but we get to this whole big bit which is important about the boys' home in LA, which is where Bosch himself, as we find out, we knew anyway, but we find more out about, was in this boys' home because he was orphaned after his mother died. But he says to Edgar, they go to the place, and he says the trunk is a room where they put boys as a punishment.
Yeah, because Waits kept talking about putting him in the trunk.
Yeah. So they work out that Waits is about 43, they think, in age. So they start to work out what years they'd need the files
what
for.
What his driver's license says, yeah.
Yeah. So they request the files from the manager, and he says they're on paper, which is like boxes and boxes of, shitloads of boxes, which is great. I love this bit because they're like, "What are we going to do?" And then Bosch is like, just calls Irv and goes, "I need a van."
Well, the guy says, "Do you have a truck?" And then Edgar says, "Do whatever you ever have to do." And then Bosch calls Irv for a truck. It's like,
and some people to carry boxes. He says, "I need a van and some people to carry."
And
boxes.
Irv answers like, "Irving Movers Limited."
Yeah. So Irving agrees, which is because he's really keen to obviously get this sold because
you really have your truck. Irv out.
Yeah, Irv out. Yeah. Damn it, Bosch. Yeah. So then we get back to Waits and his mother again. In the next scene, he's got pills for her, which we don't know. I assumed were the right pills, but
no, I think they're empty. I think he puts the empty thing that he took with him and puts them down again.
Maybe, yeah, that might be another bit that I didn't know. So he looks like he has something with pills in it. But anyway, maybe he's lying to her because he does say to her later on that he got her.
I think he takes he took the empty pill packet and just puts it back.
And put some mints in it or something.
I don't think there's anything in it. I think he just puts it back down so she won't notice right away.
Yeah. So I put down, this is just a little reference, I put he also cleans up her bed. He clearly worries about her. He clearly does worry about her, but also can be cold when she becomes too needy and he's pissed off with her, like in mood swings. He has these weird mood swings. Like 1 minute he'll be like, "Mother, are you okay?" And then the next minute it's like, "I'm going out, fuck off." Which is interesting because he's a very obviously unstable guy. Back at the
she is
home,
too, but I think she maybe gets medication for that. I don't know.
She's also it's implied that she's on a lot of fairly strong medication. which is probably wouldn't help. But also back at the home, we find out there's 8,000 files that they've got to
5,000.
get.
Oh no, 8,000. Yes,
8,000 it is.
Yeah,
Because he
8,000.
says,
Yeah, right.
Edgar says to
It's
him,
like
8,000
5,
files, Harry. To which Harry says, it's just the white kids, so that cuts the work in half.
Put
which is
the
awesome.
task force on it.
Yeah, he's like, call Irv, he'll sort it out. Then Harry goes to look at the trunk, which is the room where the punishment room thing, which is just along from where the record room is in the kind of basement or whatever. And he starts having flashbacks to having been in there and all the rest of it. And then the guy from the home, like the manager or whatever, comes over and says, we don't use that room anymore, detective. It was a draconian practice, to which Harry very quickly replies, then why have you still got a mattress in there, just in case? And then he loses his shit, and he tells the guy tells him to stick to the record room and away from this area, as he calls it, which is when Bosch loses it, and says, listen, let me tell you something. I'm from here, and if it was up to me, I'd burn the whole place to the ground. So he's obviously very up.
Well, he was in that same home.
Yeah, and he's presumably been in the. Well, we find out later that he even says he was in the trunk quite a lot, but he's clearly been in there.
Dogs from the same kennel.
That's true, and he has. He's quite shaken actually. He has
so
more
Waits
flashbacks of the area.
apparently Waits figured out that Bosch was in that home as well.
Yeah.
Probably from that hit piece the journalist wrote on him.
Mm-hmm. And he says, So he's a bit shaken. Outside the home, they're loading the boxes into the van. Harry sees a kid, a very depressed-looking kid, understandably, probably in the window, who looks dejected and like waves at him. And I put down, he knows what that's like, to be in the home, wondering why you don't have any family and that. Then, which is interesting, out of the fucking millions of boxes that are on the, not millions, but of the hundreds of whatever it is, dozens of boxes that are in the back, he pulls out a file almost immediately, and Edgar goes, "What are you, Sherlock Holmes?"
Well, he asked them for
we pulled 53 boxes, and you just look into one and pull out Waits' file.
Well, he did ask them for the box from 1978, I think.
Yeah, but you get the impression quite a lot through this. We've talked about it before, that Edgar resents that Bosch keeps giving him extra work or making extra work. Yeah. Because all he wanted to do was put all of the Arthur Delacroix stuff onto that other guy, wasn't it, who killed himself early on. He's like, fuck it, Harry, it's an open and shut case. And Harry's like, no, it doesn't seem right. So, yeah, we find out when Bosch replies to him, it's not his file. It's not Waits' file. And obviously, as he puts it in the car, we see that it says Bosch on it, Hieronymus Bosch. So we know it's his file.
It's like Edgar kind of wants to dodge work, which will become important next episode as well.
That's very true. It is, yeah. And then back to the final scene, which is back to Waits and his mother. She wakes up in the bed and she's quite distressed and she's shouting, "Where are you, David? Where are you again?" He is actually sat right there watching her in a kind of creepy way. And he tells her he didn't get the pills she wanted. He says he got something better, which actually, the way the scene goes, might, as you say, you might be right. He might not be saying that he got other kind of pills. So he tells her he got something better and she's not happy. And then he says to her, "Have I been a disappointment to you?" And she says, "He's been a perfect son ever since you came to live with us," she says. So ever since he was adopted. And then she asks if... Go on.
Well, and he says, "You're the only one who ever cared for me. My whole life you pulled me out of the fire." That's
what I was just going to say, yeah. She asks if there's something wrong, and he says, "You're the only one who cared for me." And he says, "You pulled me out of the fire. I love you, Ma." And I put down, almost a sweet moment, until he then takes the pillow and fucking suffocates her with it.
While he says, "Je t'aime."
Yeah, exactly, while he's saying that. And you're like, freaky.
Now he's speaking French.
Yeah.
Bastard. But on Christmas as well.
Yeah.
Killing his mother over Christmas.
I know, it's so it's fucked up, but that's where we get to the credits, and we basically see that he's smothered her. So I don't know if you took this as well, but when he was talking to the people on the phone earlier about the home, and he's like asking them about rates and stuff, he says to them about what's the basic package, meaning for the home. And then as the woman starts to say something, he does hang up on her because the mother calls him. But I also wondered, because he clearly doesn't have any money, I also wondered if his plan A was to like put her in a home somewhere, which, as you said, isn't very well thought out. And then because he hasn't got any money, he's like, the other option is I'll just have to put her in the ground. And so, and that'll be better for her, like a mercy killing or something.
Well,
It's weird, man.
she was quite annoying.
She didn't seem to have it. I mean, I'm not. It sounds like I'm defending him now, but she didn't seem to have a great quality of life either. And all she does is complain all the time and go on about how she lives alone and she's got nothing.
Fucking whistles like David,
Yeah.
David. Ugh.
Yeah, she is quite annoying. But
Not
still,
that I'm advocating killing.
I was just going to say I'd
elderly
like to distance myself from smothering people.
from Fab.
Yeah, exactly. So, that was quite a long episode. But there's a lot in that episode. I thought so much like this show. The episodes of Bosch are variable in length. Some of them are quite 42 minutes, and some of them are like nearly an hour. So there's quite a big difference.
We're getting longer too here.
Yeah. So let's wrap it up on this one then. So that was episode 7. What did we learn? I don't know. We learned that his mother's crap at French, although we kind of knew that already. He's crap at disguises. We learned for sure that Harry was in the home, which I think we knew anyway, but he has a lot of problems and scarring.
Irv's fucking smooth in a sweater.
We learned that Irv likes sweaters. Yeah. And so on. And we learned that you can buy posters in Paris that say "Visit Paris" on them. I think. So that's not really something that we've learned. We probably knew that. So yeah, that's cool. We need to do some very quick housekeeping, don't we? Which is
yes. So if you have some feedback, write to us. feedback@sixgun.org for that final show that we're doing. If you're on GitLab, you can also give feedback right through GitLab. It'll all be in the show notes. There'll be show notes. If you want to talk to us on Twitter, we're HW Outlaws on Twitter. I'm Fab Foxtrot Alpha Bravo Sierra Hotel. Dan is
at Method Dan on Twitter, which is
on Twitters.
Hang on, I need to think about my phonetic alphabet now. What's M?
Oh God,
I don't use M. I know it's Echo. Is E?
Me on the spot. What's M? Mike.
Mike. Okay, so it's Mike Echo.
Tango. Hotel.
Hotel. What's O?
Fuck
it, it's METHODDAN. There you go.
What is
Fuck your phonetic alphabet.
Oscar.
Fuck, of course it is.
Oscar,
Yeah.
Delta, Alpha, November. No, Alpha, November. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Yes, we have a Discord. Discord.sixgun.org. Link also on sixgun.org. Thanks to Bytemark for hosting this podcast. And also, thanks to the great Bourbon Boys for a wonderful intro song. They're on... What site do we get their music on so they get maximum money?
Oh, Bandcamp.
Bandcamp, yes.
Yeah.
Also on Spotify, but don't use that.
No.
Because it's evil.
Well, listen to it on Spotify, and if you like it, then buy it on Bandcamp would be my advice. If you want to support the art.
As an experiment, streamed this on Twitch, so we might do some more of that in the future. I'll keep you posted. But for now, I would say we're done, right?
Yeah, on that note, I'm just going to say, Dan out.
6 William 21, code 7. I repeat, 6 William 21, code 7.
Right, there you go.
Over out.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna stop this recording.
Yeah.
Just so we have 2 files. Yeah. And then I'm gonna jump out for a second, just get new beer.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some tea. I'll be back in a sec.
right, I'm back, but Dan isn't yet, so I'll keep you entertained for a bit. I don't know what he's up to. After all that time, he probably needs fresh bath water or something. I'm guessing the bath is getting cold by now. Although the echo for the fact that he was podcasting live from his bathtub was actually quite good audio. Can't complain. Anything going on the internet? No, it doesn't look like it. Well, yes, we'll record a second episode in just a bit when Dan's back, because we like to double these up, and then I can release them smoothly. Just I don't know. I always think it's less work, but then I remember that I do need to watch 2 episodes of Bosch and record 2 podcasts, which is 4 hours in the day gone. But luckily I'm a freelancer now, and won't get paid for it, but at least it's fun. It is quite fun to do this. See if anything's been happening while I've been doing this. No. Nothing going on. The internet being quite boring. Friday night. Nothing happening. God, it's Friday. That reminds me I need to fly back to the bubble in Elite. Might do that afterwards. I'm not going to stream it though, because it's bloody boring. I'm just jumping from one system to the next. Dan's back.
I'm back. I could see you that you were talking because the levels were going up and down. Are you still on the stream?
I put the stream on again, so it's trying to entertain people.
Yeah.
Do you have you put new fresh water in the bathtub? It must be getting cold.
Yeah, I had to top it up a bit. I've actually just gone and got a lemonade as well. I've switched from. We're going to talk about it in a minute probably, but I've switched from tea to lemonade now. Staying
on the lemon theme though.
I am, but I had to try really hard because I put ice in everything because I just like ice in drinks, but it's not good for a podcast because you goes clink all the time. So I resisted putting.
I think it's quite okay. I like that sound. Like if it sounds like you're drinking a scotch, I kind of actually.
Well,
like
that's kind of what it's in a tumbler. It's in a tumbler glass, a scotch glass. Yeah.
So
I'll do that next time then.
Yeah.
I'll put ice in it.
I don't mind that. I do that on GNR actually. I had like GNT and just like kept shaking the tumbler.
GNT on GNR.
People like the sound. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Cool. All right, and I have also just put some potatoes in the oven for they'll take about an hour probably.
Oh, we are on a timer now. Is this?
Yeah. So just to do a real kind of Harry Bosch style, dialogue metaphor. My spuds are in the oven on this one, so we need to get this fucking sorted. All right.
Lemon Snow Cone says.
I could just imagine Irvin going, "Damn it, Harry, my spuds are in the oven here."
Lemon Snow Cone says in Twitch chat, scotch, but I should go to bed. You can go to bed and still have a scotch. Just have both.
Get it on a drip.
Yeah, just get it in bed. I sniffed it to bed. I do that all the time, especially with scotch.
Although, if you want to get controversial, I'm a real whiskey fan, but I drink mostly bourbon and stuff, as you know. But I actually
bourbon isn't whiskey.
Prepare to be upset, people. I prefer Irish whiskey. I do. I always have. I like Scotch, but if you give me the choice, I'm like, yeah, give me an Irish whiskey, like a Jameson or a Bushmill.
Well, that's because you're from Dublin. No,
yeah, it's because of Liverpool is like twinned with Dublin.
Yeah, I know.
I do like Scotch as well, but if given the choice, like I've got a big bottle of Jameson in the cupboard there, and I really do like an Irish whiskey.
Well, Lemon Snow Cone agrees with you on Twitch.
Really,
Irish is better than Scottish.
To be sure. Hello. Anyway,
yeah, you should do the show like that. I like that.
To be sure.
I'll start recording then. Is that?
Oh yeah, I'll start mine as well. That's a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, I'm recording. Just to get this on the road.
We've got a bit of time. I put over an hour on the oven and I put it on a low
Okay.
heat, so it's fine. And it switches itself off when the timer
We
goes.
need
So it
to
might
we
be...
need to reference that on the show.
Oh yeah, I'm going to talk about spuds in the oven.
Just say that your spots are on the line.
Spuds. It also makes it well. Actually, I'm not going to say it. Let's talk about this in a second because I've got some more to
Right.
say.
I'll
Um,
I'll do the intro.
All right.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Hollywood Outlaws, the show where we talk about Bosch, the great detective show on Amazon. My name's Fab from Hamburg.
And I'm Dan from Liverpool. Hello.
And people have to be aware that we're recording this right after the last episode, so I'm down 2 Landgang Pilsners, and I'm opening my third. Just if you're wondering, while I'm more drunk every second episode, it's because you have to take the alcohol level from the previous episode into account.
What were you drinking that other one? Wasn't it was it whiskey or something you were drinking that time?
Oh yeah, that's where I was really pissed.
Because you were really pissed. By the end of it, I was waiting for you to go, "Who are you? What are we doing here?"
I was finishing like a bottle of Jim Beam, and I was editing it. I was listening through, right? And I listened like to the last 15 minutes. And I was like, "Holy shit!" I was drunk, and I could hear you
really
just
drunk.
suffering
I was getting
me.
slightly frustrated.
Yeah.
I started to, by the end, I was getting frustrated because you were so pissed.
Yeah, I was just going, I was laughing about jokes that happened 5 minutes before.
So another thing we should mention, which we were talking about just a second ago, is that we're slightly not under pressure, but we're slightly under a time pressure on this one. In that I just in between shows went downstairs and put some potatoes in the oven, so I'm going to have baked potatoes for tea. But I put like an hour and 10 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes on the timer, which now we've eaten into some of that, so we've got about an hour probably. But
then
as I said,
spuds are on the line.
We're under pressure because my spuds are in the oven on this one. I really like the idea of saying that. I think he'd say that really well. Although spuds is too much of a British thing, he wouldn't say that. But can you just imagine it like, "Damn it, Bosh, my spuds are in the oven here."
What would an American say? Taters?
I don't know what they say. Do they eat baked potatoes? I don't know. I know they eat a lot of potatoes, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
You call them taters or something?
I don't know. Who knows? But it does also make me think of Red Dwarf, obviously, as many things do, where it's like, "No need to throw your love spuds on the Barbie too, Dave." The Ace Rimmer. It's like, "No need to throw your spuds on the Barbie too, Dave." There you go. My spuds are not on the Barbie, but they are in the oven. There you go.
Right, so, let's get into it then.
Episode 8. Episode 8 of Bosch, which actually, fortunately for us, I think it might work out at about an hour because it's quite a short episode. It's
it was shorter than the previous one, right?
Yeah, 42 minutes. And as we said, there's quite a big variation in the Bosch episodes because some of them are like nearly up to an hour. Some of them are like 15 minutes.
I actually like that because you can tell that they're not beholden to TV times.
Yeah,
and the editors have a little bit more leeway. Kind of like that because I'm watching TNG at the moment. And you can really tell that like some episodes would have needed like 10 minutes more. Yeah. Or like it would be okay if they were 10 minutes shorter, and you can see that they're just filling them out because they have to get that like 48 minutes or something when they advertise. There's like a number.
Well, a lot of the American shows, which I kind of surreptitiously acquire through various means, are and that's as much as I'm willing to say on that. Spuds in the oven or not, is they're always about 42 minutes, 43 minutes. If it's like an hour-long show on TV, there'll be 16, 17 minutes.
That's like that's like the ad subtract. There's like a number.
Yeah, that's the ad.
Like 42, 26
usually about 43 minutes or something. Yeah. So this is a fairly short one. Episode 8. What's this one titled? I've forgotten already.
High Low.
High Low. Yeah.
High Low. Kind of
appropriate. Yeah. There's a lot in this episode though, even though it's a short one. But it is a good one. So actually, this one again carries on directly from. I know I keep saying this. It's a TV series, so you'd expect the episodes to carry on one from the other. But this is almost
well, it depends on the show. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, true.
It's not a it's a procedural, so it's not like one of these shows where it resets every episode like the old.
It's not Quantum Leap where Bosch goes like, "Oh boy," every episode when he realizes.
Yeah, or TNG's like every episode is like the same.
Boy. So this one very directly carries on in the same way as we had the continuation of the car scene where Bosch is in the car with Stokes in the last one. This one, I mean, it is supposed to be, I think, the morning after he's smothered his mother.
Yeah,
Smothered his mother? That's hard to say. But it opens with Waits having, as we heard at the end of the last episode, just killed his mother.
I think this is Christmas morning, yeah.
Yeah. It's the day after Christmas, though, isn't it? Because they had Christmas dinner the day before. I think we're on to Boxing Day now. But I don't know. Right, well, Boxing Day is not a thing in America. It is in Canada, but it's not in America. It's a UK Commonwealth thing, apparently. They think they have it in Australia as well.
Well, in Germany, we have the presents on the 24th. And then we have 2 Christmas days, like 2 full days of family hell.
Yeah, and then Krampus. And then Krampus.
No, that's southern Germany.
Oh, that's a shame. I quite like that. Anyway, let's not get on to weird Christmas traditions. You've got the whole, like, what's that one they have in Holland? Who's like a black dwarf?
Oh, Black Pete.
Black Pete or something, yeah, which is very un-PC.
It's very racist.
Yeah, Black Pete. Anyway, so never mind that. So anyway, opens in the Waits residence, as I put. His mother's dead in the bed. Her eyes are open, which is quite creepy, just looking up but she's dead.
Does it smell that like you? I watch when you say Waits residence. When I watch that, I have like a smell like old person's home. I got that every time we were watching scenes in that house. It's like I had that smell.
And a faint smell of like urine and stuff, probably.
Yeah, it's maybe because I did before I went to university for a while. I did like this. I had a job, just like just like a student job, just like basically delivering food, like to people, to elderly people. Like,
yeah.
You know, you drive
we
around.
Call it Meals on Wheels.
Meals on Wheels. That's what it's called. Yeah, Essen auf Rädern. I did that for a while, so I know that smell ingrained itself into my brain quite deeply.
I've got to be honest though. I mean, I've smelt like that a few times myself, so I'm not. I can't really say. I've woken up a few times and gone like, "Ooh,
am I still alive?"
Yeah. What's that smell? Petrol and something else. Anyway, so yeah, that's true. But he's playing with matches, funnily enough.
Yeah.
He's finding a box of matches, and you're like,
did you think he was going to set the house on fire? That's what I thought.
I thought that because I put in here, she had an oxygen tank. She had like a gas mask.
Yeah.
And I put, presumably he's going to use the candle that he lights to make it look like her death was an accident with the bottle. Because, you know, she'll be obviously burnt and that. And I actually put down, so he sits at a table and he pours a coffee. And he pours 2 coffees. One for him and one for presumably her. And I put this could either be to make the scene look more convincing as an accident, because, you know, it'll look like they've had an ordinary coffee together, or just because he's actually batshit crazy. And when he
then he drinks out of her cup.
Yeah, which I think just probably says the latter, really, that he's just a bit mad.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't actually set fire. But I was convinced, having seen this show, albeit a few years ago or three years ago now. I couldn't remember the details, so I was like, "Oh, does he burn the house down to cover it up?"
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. I couldn't remember either, and I saw it a few months ago.
Yeah,
it's all the Pilsner.
So, he doesn't. But I'll tell you something else. He cries like a solitary tear as he drinks from her cup, having just killed her, which is really creepy.
No, well, he's. I think he's surprised that he's crying because he cries, and then he like touches his eyes, looks at the tear, and you know at his wet finger, and then goes like, "Am I crying?"
He's definitely a strange guy. I think we've established that.
Fucking weird.
So then it's title time, music time, and we get the opening scene. Yeah. I like the
feeling
drum.
that I just can't. I got the feeling that I just can't.
That's the one. The drums are really good in that as well.
Oh yeah, the drums are amazing.
So I put down. So this is interesting. One of the things we've talked about this before, but one of the great things about watching this on Amazon and other services are available, although not with Bosch. Not for Bosch, sadly. But because I don't actually like the Amazon interface that much usually. But what I do like is that it tells you not only which actors are in each scene, their character, the title of the character, the name of the character, the actor, and any music that's on there. So I looked on there because this episode opens after the titles with Bosch in his, looking at his epic view over LA from his house and listening to jazz. And
I wrote down beer, Bosch at night, beer, case files, jazz in his flat.
And so one of the reasons I was like, I thought that sounds familiar, or it sounds like I should know that song. And I just paused it, and then of course you can see it tells you it's a Sonny Rollins track, and I was like, oh, that's cool. So it's really good for getting extra information.
There is
so
a great, even though Spotify is evil.
No, it's fine.
Somebody made a great Bosch unofficial playlist on Spotify with all the songs.
Boschify? No, that doesn't really work.
Boschify.
You could make a spin-off app and call it like Boschify. If you want to Boschify your day, you can just put some music. And then it comes with a little thing of like whiskey or something, or I don't know, and a case file and a murder book.
A murder book.
And then you like Boschify
and
your
some
day.
scotch.
And some scotch.
Yeah. And a gun.
Yeah, and a gun. And some cigarettes, half a packet of cigarettes. So he's looking at the murder books, he's listening to stuff. He's doing his usual thing. And then next thing we see, because it's night at this time when he's looking out over the city and that.
Yeah.
And then daylight next. So presumably it's the next day. And this is the scene that we accidentally started talking about on the last episode.
Oh, so that was from this episode. I didn't know that
he goes
was
to a
from
diner. Yeah, so Bosch, next day, it's light. He drives to a diner for breakfast, presumably, where he meets Eleanor Wish, his ex-wife, mother of his child. And says,
this is
you sleep in that dress, and she says the game just finished, or the game.
This is Norm's diner.
Did you go there?
No, but it looks like a typical. I've been to diners like this when I was over there.
That's cool. So she's in.
It's also the thing is like I thought that was like when we went to that diner in Vegas, right? Yeah. The waitresses that come and immediately fill your coffee, like in this scene.
Yeah.
Actually happens like this. Also, they have the exact same haircut.
Huh?
And wear an apron like this.
It's almost like they filmed it in an actual diner. Which I'm sure.
Yes, but when you see something on TV and you know it from like when you see British TV and you're like, it's not like that in reality. Like when Hollywood, for example,
unlike when you see a German representation of someone in lederhosen, because we know you all wear them.
That's like
drinking a stein of beer and
when Hollywood
films an accordion and stuff.
I used to play accordion, so I can't complain about that.
Right, okay.
When Hollywood films stuff in Germany, there's like always this like incredibly German thing that like never happens. Actually, they in November and October, November last year, they filmed a major Hollywood movie here in Hamburg. There were like I could see like driving along. You could always see like film crews everywhere, and they were actually looking for extras.
Is that Rutger Hauer? Oh no, you said major Hollywood film. Sorry.
My problem is I wasn't freelancing at that point. Otherwise, I would have totally gone to be an extra, because you need like lots of flexible times and stuff like that.
Yeah, you need to stand around for ages.
Yeah. But I would have so done this. So I'm really interested now which movie that's gonna turn out to be. Yeah. And if it actually looks like Hamburg, or if it's gonna be like ridiculously German and people in lederhosen walking around eating pretzel, like having a stein in one hand, which is like 90% of Germany doesn't even know what a stein is. And then
and some bratwurst or something.
A bratwurst in the other hand, yeah.
And some cabbage or whatever, sauerkraut and all that.
Well, cabbage would be like this is cabbage country. Like the north is. So there's
very quickly as an aside. I don't know. I'm sure I might probably told this story very quickly on what's the name, Linux Outlaws years ago. But on the subject of extras, I've got a friend who was when he was a student. Where he's actually, I think, working as a part time, but he didn't have much money. He went to be an extra in films and used to get, I think, whatever it was, not a lot of money, but you got enough, and you got like there was a food table and shit. And so him and some other guys that we knew went to be an extra in quite a big Hollywood film, and I can't remember what it's called, which is bad, but it was like set in medieval times, so they had to wear. There was a battle scene, and they needed lots of people to lie around and be dead bodies for the battle scene. And to cut a long story short, this was going on for hours and hours and hours that they had to lie there. And at one point, my friend got pissed off and sat up and went like, "Are we finished now?" to the guy next to him. And it was in the middle of the scene. And the director was like, "What are you doing?" And like one of the dead bodies behind them sits up and goes, "Are we done now?"
That is the kind of thing what you hear about on Hollywood Babylon later. It's like they fucked up the scene.
Yeah. It was someone like it was a medieval film with somebody like Richard Gere in it or something. Who was like playing a knight or something, and it was quite a big production. And I was like, right. So I think he got fired for that, which obviously isn't surprising.
Yeah.
But never mind. Yeah. So anyway, where are we? So yeah, Bosch and Eleanor are in the diner. She's still wearing a dress, that like fancy dress, and he says, "You sleep in that dress," and she says, "Well, the game just broke up, so she's been up all night playing
She
cards."
made 30K
Yeah, and then this is where they get into a big
from
fight.
some fat cat in Bel Air.
That's the one. She says to him very kind of like, "I need to tell you something. Maddie was in a car accident."
Oh,
like,
yeah,
very
that's
calmly,
yes.
and then he freaks out.
He's
And,
like, airbag?
Yeah.
Who's driving?
Yeah, he says was a friend, and she says a friend was driving. Harry's really pissed off.
It's
And he
conservative
says,
Harry again. Yeah.
and she says, "It's okay, Harry." And he says, "I'm not okay. Where the hell was Reggie, who's their new husband?"
What
then,
about some parental supervision?
And it descends into a big argument. And then she says, "I'm not taking arguments from you about like absentee parenting and all this shit." And then she
says,
storms out.
Well, he said before she said she made 30K, she was in the zone, right? And he's like, when Maddie had the car crash, where were you? Oh yeah, in the zone. And then she's like, you were in your own private zone our whole marriage. It's conservative parenting, Harry.
Yeah, that's the one. And they have a big fight. She storms out and heads to the airport. She's like, "I'm going to the airport," or whatever, fucks off. And then obviously Harry's fucked up breakfast. And then I don't know. There's a bit of a small kind of cut here, so it's possibly he had his breakfast before coming back to the car. I don't know, but anyway, he goes back to his car and his phone rings, and I put down it's our number one psycho on the line, who says he wants advice from Bosch about his mother's death, and he seems to be, because he's the whole way through this whole series, he's been trying to prove how clever he is and trying to rattle Bosch in some way. And now he's actually found something to rattle him with, where he says he wants advice about his mother's death, because he says, like, you know, my mother's died, your mother's died, and all this, and how do you deal with it, and whatever. And he's basically trying to wind him up. And he says he's trying to play on Harry's sympathy and make it out. This is funny. I wrote down, he's trying to play on Harry's sympathy, but he takes the tone of a victim, not mentioning the reason for this awful thing that's happened, which he keeps going on about to his mother, is because he fucking suffocated her, the dick.
The dick.
Yeah, basically. Exclamation mark at the end of that, obviously. And then he says, and then this is interesting because it goes to what we know about weights anyway. But Harry says to him, "Why don't you put her with the others?" Because he's trying to find out if he has got this thing that Eleanor's told him he might have, like trying. He says, "Why don't you put her with the others? Remember, you don't steal shovels, remember? You steal souls." To which Waits loses it and goes, "Bury her with those fucking whores!" And he screams his head off and he goes, "You just don't understand anything, or do you not understand anything?"
Yeah.
And then so that shows the whole thing about, like, as you said, he had trouble killing people who weren't like prostitutes, for example, or male or female prostitutes, whatever it may be. He had problems killing people who weren't that. So he's got this weird thing about killing like sex workers or something, and he calls them fucking whores and all that. And I put down Harry is poking him deliberately, which I think we knew to some degree.
Yeah, he's trying to just get information from him, I think.
Next, one of my favorite scenes, because every scene with Irv in it is brilliant, is like we cut to the Irving residence. I put like the Irving residence. He's doing well for himself. He's doing well for himself. He saunters out and discusses police politics with his wife, and then
good-looking wife too.
Yeah. And he's like,
did you notice he has another wife next season? By the way, it's another actress.
Yeah, the actress. Yeah, changed. Yeah. So he says. She's asking him about what's going on, and he says, "Well, new mayor, new chief of police." And then he kind of pauses, and she goes, "Oh, I understand." And then she says to him, "Remember, just because a man wears his collar turned upside down doesn't mean he can be trusted." And then Irv's like, "As if I don't know that." As he like walks off, like, as he saunters off, like, "Irv out."
Irv out.
Like, as he saunters through the kitchen, because he's going to visit one of the clergy, obviously. Which
well,
we find more out about.
I had to like actually turn on subtitles to get his name. So his name is Isaiah
Reverend Ott. Yeah.
Yeah, but just the Isaiah Ott, I couldn't get, like, Ott's obviously a German last name, but then the whole Isaiah thing was just like.
I just called him Reverend Ott, but I did look it up.
Reverend Ott.
Yeah, and then I've written this down a bit like a script. I'm putting down like location at the start, so I've got Hollywood Homicide Division. This is the next scene. Interior. Kiz and Barrel are looking through the mountains of files, which they obviously picked up in the end of the last episode. And Kiz says they put kids in. So they discuss, like, Harry's like, how are you getting on? And they're like, God, Harry, there's so many files, whatever. And then he says to them, you know, you look for this code because it's the code for when they put people in this.
Yeah, he found that trunk. He found that in his file.
In his one, yeah, because he was in there a lot, which we actually get confirmed because Kids says to, like, in like startled way, he says they put kids in solitary, to which Barrel immediately goes, I bet that was you. Or, like, that was you, I bet. And Harry's like, yeah, once or twice, you know. And like, it's like, and then Harry admits, like, you know, talks about his kind of.
I gave them a lot of lip, he says.
Yeah. And he says
I was mad 24/7.
He thinks they can use that as a lead to find them. And then the people, again, more evidence that the other police officers in the station are pissed off about Harry and the Stokes thing and Brasher because they've made a picture of him as Jesus with his head stuck on Jesus thing, forgiving Stokes for whatever he's done. And he's like, very funny, guys, you know, or whatever. And then Edgar pops in. And
I think also he's wondering how did they make that, because that was obviously like printed out on the computer.
Oh, I was just going to say, we know that Harry doesn't understand technology.
And Harry's like, what technology did they have? Do they have a printing press?
What oil paint did they use on this? Like, yeah, he thinks they've made like a proper oil painting and whatever. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Then Edgar pops up and says that Jasper, have we met Jasper before? I don't know if we have. So he's like an evidence guy or something.
We have met him. He is in the earlier episodes when they're still investigating the Delacroix case more. He is on that. Like,
what happened to the old hippie doctor guy? Because I was waiting for it to be him, and it wasn't
obviously
him.
Obviously not there. But we'll get back to Jasper. Or is that this scene? Let me see. Because where are we?
We're on they're looking through the files, and Harry's been in, tells them about he was in Barrel and Thingy are looking through the files.
Well, I was we had the drawing, but before we get to that, the science guy, right? Yep. I was like, when they're talking about, when they have that drawing and they're talking about weights, they're tracking him, and Bosch says they're pinging his phone every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? Don't they know how this works?
Yeah, I was thinking that.
They can just trace him. Why, if he keeps the same phone, if that's not a burner, or if they found the burner he's using, why don't they just trace him?
From the cell towers usually, don't you?
Well, yeah, that's what pinging is. Like, you ping the phone, and then you know where it is. But you wouldn't do it every 30 minutes.
That's what I mean.
Every 30 seconds. But yeah, then they go to the forensics guy. Although the
30 minutes is quite a long time as well, because you could ping it once and go like, oh, he's at home. And then ping it again and go, fuck, he's on the other side of town. Like, I mean,
how did he do that?
Yeah, that's not great.
Yeah.
Bad practice. That's an unsat for me, I think. I'd give them an unsat for that. Yeah, then we get to, so Edgar tells him that this Jasper's got something to show them. They head off to do that. As they're walking out, you see the next scene, which is something I actually alluded to in the last episode, because the thing about doing 2 episodes at once is you forget sometimes which
sorry, I think I did that too, yeah.
Yeah, so Brasher's entering the station. It's her first day back, presumably talking to other cops on the stairs and stuff. And they're like, "Oh, how are you?" And she's like I was, punched in the tip by a bear or something. And but it's almost like really full on. Almost, she doesn't do this, but it's almost like you can imagine her high fiving people as she goes in, as they're like, "Yeah," because the guy says to her, "You're all right, Brasher," and you're like, interesting. Which is then she goes to see Mank, who's also.
So we learn you just need to get shot and you're the hero.
Yeah, and then suddenly you're all right. Yeah. So she goes to see Mank, who's in, he's he's in the dispatch thing, and he says that Captain Pounds wants to see her ASAP. So she knows she's going to have to go and see him. So she goes in to see Pounds, and he says, which is quite interesting. He starts off asking her like quite as if he's being nice, like, "Oh, how are you doing?" and all that. And then he goes, "Your story's bullshit."
Yeah. I thought that, well, he really likes her. And then I thought, well, if Pounds likes you, that's probably not a good thing. And then he just goes, "You're fucking it up."
Yeah, your story's bullshit. And he says all evidence supports Stokes' version of events and not hers. And then
so they checked for gunshot residue.
Yeah, he does all that thing where he's like, GSR. "Do you think they found gunshot residue on his
GSR?
Hand?
He says, "You're from GSR. You're from GSR." Yeah.
Yeah, and all the evidence is not helping her. And then he makes a thinly veiled ultimatum, essentially. He tells her to report Bosch for forcing her into a sexual
Yeah.
relationship with him to keep her own job. And she's like, well, how's that going to help me? Because it's not going to look any good on my record and all the rest of it. And he says, well, I put down, we know how much Pounds hates Bosch anyway, but he says no one downtown will want to see a sex scandal, especially involving Bosch. He says, and he tells her that they'll just bury her third unsat thing and never mention it, and it won't go on the record because it'll be better than the sex scandal coming out. And then he says, tell him, and he says, say that he coerced you into a sexual relationship, and she says, but he didn't coerce me. And she's kind of doesn't seem to want to go with that story. And then Pounds, this is brilliant. This is one of the best lines. Pounds goes, he fucked you, Brasher. Every which way he fucked you. He fucked your career with the LAPD. Are you going to stand for that?
He fucked you right out of your career. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I wrote that down too. Yeah, we seem to write down the same lines. We're like right on.
That's a good line.
Same level,
she still doesn't seem sure about what to do. She doesn't like the idea of and actually we learn more about this later, so I'll leave it for now. But we learn that it's not necessarily that she doesn't want to do anything that will hurt Bosch. It's more that she's like, my career will be fucked if I do this anyway.
Yeah, and I think I also got the feeling she doesn't like Pounds because nobody likes Pounds because he's an idiot. Yeah, but that elevates her to me a bit. Like if she was gonna go now, well, I'm with you. We're gonna sort this out. She would have sunk in my estimation even more.
Yeah,
but even she's like, oh god, it's fucking Pounds. Now I have like my only chance to save my career is fucking Pound. Like her problem is not that she'd have to stick it to Bosch, because you get the feeling that she would do that. She's quite crucial, like ruthless that way when it comes to her career. But I got the feeling that it's like, oh no, I'm at the point where I have to ally with Pounds. Something's going wrong here.
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, yeah, it would affect kind of the way you feel about the character, I think. One of the things I liked about this episode, which we'll get to in a second, I like all the episodes, but some I suppose slightly more than others. And this one, I think I really loved this episode because there's a lot of Irv in it. It's an Irv heavy episode, which for me is a good thing. Because Crate and Barrel are out of action. Well, Crate's out of action, so I can't get any Crate and Barrel action. So I'm like, Irv is rapidly becoming my favorite thing about this.
I do think also they get better. Like I feel like they get better.
They do. Yeah,
it's hitting. You can feel the series is hitting its stride more and more. I think in second season it'll get even better. But
True.
It's picking up momentum with Eleanor being involved and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So we head to Interior Church. I've written down. Irving is going for his meeting that he was talking earlier to his wife about, and he meets Reverend Ott. I'm not going to try and say his first name. And he
Isaiah.
says, all right. And then Ott says to him, the Reverend says to him, "Can I give you the 10-cent tour?" To which he says, "Oh, I am familiar with this church. I used to come here every Sunday with my parents." And then he's like, "Oh, of course, I forget. You're from the community." And he says, "I don't." And it's like clear. So I put down clear political games and posturing from Irving.
It sounds like he used to go to that church until that reverend started like preaching there.
Maybe.
So in the books, just a little bit of background. So in the books, this is important as well. In the books, they go on. I don't think it's O'Shea, but it's this whole DA wants to be mayor, and it's like Irvin positioning himself, and there's the reverend. I think his name's different, but there's the reverend from the church in South LA, and in the book, it's in the 90s, so it's after the Rodney King riots. Mm-hmm. So like the black community is very important. That's why he's getting involved. But in the book, it's something where they go on about how there were a lot of like born again Christians in the LAPD, because the chief, like not the current, like not in the story the current chief, but like a chief before that, he used to be big on. Like he used to be a Christian, blah, 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 loving that. And so all the people who wanted a chance to be promoted suddenly saw the faith.
Yeah.
Because you had to be in church with the chief, like literally in his, like on Sunday in his church, if you wanted to get anywhere.
Yeah, and they play, because of the politics of all this, it's very much about the kind of the black vote, as they call it in the community, which Irving's trying to get through the church.
Three-piece suit. LA's a three-piece suit.
That's exactly it, yeah. So I put down clear political games and posturing here. Irving says that they can help each other. He wants Ott to support O'Shea for mayor, And I put down, it's a negotiation because Ott then says he wants Irv to reduce the amount of heavy police tactics in these streets, in the nearby streets.
He
and
also
he makes a threat as well. He threatens him.
Well, he says, I want to halt to Gestapo tactics in South LA.
Yeah, that's right.
To which
and he says
Earth goes, like, it's two black people talking to each other, right? And Earth goes, I don't think we're quite the Gestapo.
Yeah.
Yes, for the simple fact that you're black, you're not the Gestapo.
No. Oh my God! I've just noticed something really, really bad.
Do you smell something burning?
No, you're gonna hate this. This is worse than that. My recorder's not working. It's stopped for some reason.
Oh God!
Oh no! I think we may. I don't even know if it's saved the file, so we may have to start again.
Oh no!
Yeah,
well,
I'm just starting it again now, but I've no idea what it got or it didn't get. So.
Well, I think that we need to start again, right? Shall I stop?
Yep. Hang on, let me check. Well, no, we're okay. We've still got about 40 minutes to Spudville. Oh, actually, I've switched themselves off. It's fine. All right, let's try again. Oh, that was bad because I thought it was loads of good
40 minutes to Spudville.
yeah. Actually, looking down the notes, we haven't got that far. We're a few scenes in. Go on then. Let's do the intro. Everybody's listening on the live thing. You'll enjoy that.
Let me just stop my recording so I have a new one.
Go on. I'll stop and start mine so we're actually around the same time.
Are
you ready?
I'm just recording again now.
Right, it's definitely recording. Hang on, let me press it again. It's definitely recording. The timer's going. Everything seems fine. It's plugged in, so there's no power issue. I don't know. Maybe I was just so stupid that I didn't press record hard enough the first time.
But I don't think we can do the show in 40 minutes, so we might have to stop for Spudville and just take the Spuds out then.
Okay, but it doesn't matter. No, well, I've got to go out in about an hour and a half or an hour and a bit. So let's just do it now, and I'll just have Spuds to go.
I love that everybody's seeing this on the stream. By the way, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
So
we're doing. You're gonna know all the things we're gonna say.
We're doing this again from the beginning, right?
Take two.
So I'll do the intro again, right?
Mm-hmm. I think that was about half an hour we did.
Yeah, we did. Okay.
We've done more. We've done 2-hour shows that didn't get recorded before now, which was worse.
It's been a long time that this happened, so it's kind of okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do the intro again, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Hey everybody, welcome to Hollywood Outlaws, where we talk about the great detective show Bosch. I'm Fab from Hamburg.
Hey, I'm Dan from Liverpool.
And I'm really drunk now.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can probably reveal that this is the second take of this show because I fucked up the recording.
Also, we streamed this live, so people will have seen it.
This is going to be interesting, so we're getting a second go at this. But now, I've got to mention even more so that on the other show we were talking about, before we started recording about half an hour ago that we lost, I put some potatoes in the oven for dinner, and then I was talking about how we were under time pressure because I had like about an hour.
Spuds are on the line.
Because my spuds were in the oven, which is the phrase I like to use. Which, as I said, Irving would be awesome saying like, "Damn it, Bosch, my spuds are in the oven." I feel like my Irving voice is getting better. It's not good, but it's getting better. So like, "Damn it, Bosch." Anyway, we're getting there. So we're under a bit of time pressure, but it's not massive. It was just more of a kind of a joke.
I like to point out that when we started the last episode, I pointed out that I'm drinking Landgang Pilsner. Right, yeah. And I pointed out that we tend to record 2 episodes in a go. So if you are wondering why I am more drunk every second episode, it's because you have to take the alcohol content from the previous show into account. Now you have to take the alcohol content from that show and the half show we just recorded and lost into account. Yeah. So if I'll be completely pissed by the end of the show, kind of like that episode where I drank a bottle of Jim Beam and then was really pissed off my tits.
Yeah. So how many beers in are you then?
This is 2.5 now.
Okay, that's not bad. I'm on my second half of a glass of lemonade, so it could get crazy on the sugar. You don't know.
It will just be one of those episodes where at the end, I was listening back to that one episode, and I was like, I was like, man, I'm really drunk.
You were you were drinking Jim Beam then, and that was a lot. You were a lot more drunk. I would say that. Yeah, definitely. By the end, you were definitely a lot more drunk.
You were just suffering me. Yeah.
And now. Yeah. No, it wasn't that. It was getting a bit like, I think we were trying to wrap it up, and you were still kind of like very.
Yeah, I was laughing about jokes from five minutes ago.
Yeah. Well, that's because they were so good, obviously. That's the party line. So this is episode 8 of Bosch,
titled High Low.
High Low,
is kind of appropriate.
Very appropriate.
Now.
Yeah. Yeah. So as I mentioned on the people on the Lost recording, I
It is.
for some reason
Since
when
I
wrote
was
these
streaming
notes, I
this
put a
live
lot
on
of.
Twitch, it'll be on YouTube, so you can
Oh
watch
yeah,
it
it'll
if
be
you're
on
really
YouTube, so you'll
interested.
be able to hear it. For some reason, I write my notes in Google Docs because it was easy on the tablet. But I noticed on this one, I've gone even more for the whole screenplay style thing, where I'll have like opening, exterior, waits residence, and all that kind of stuff, like they do in the scripts. So I don't know why I've done that, but I thought it was quite nice. So that's what happens. Opening, we have the exterior of the Waits residence. And then we see inside the house where his mother is, as we mentioned at the end of the last episode, his mother's dead and she's on the bed. Her eyes are open, which is a bit creepy. And then,
She is dead. That is creepy.
She's definitely no, but it's the eyes opening thing, because usually when someone's died, they do that thing.
Oh,
When they
yeah,
pull
the
the eyelid.
closing the eyes, yeah.
So he doesn't. It again goes towards this view of him as some weird psycho who doesn't have any feelings, because you could at least cover the eyes, But anyway, and not that it matters to her because she's dead, but what I mean? It's kind of common decency. People usually kind of shut the eyes at least when they're dead. Yeah, he has a box of matches, which I assumed he was going to like burn the place down and make it look like an accident because of her oxygen tanks, and she'd like use, he could use that as a kind of way.
Yeah,
of
I thought he was going to set the house on fire when I saw him with the candles.
Yeah, he lights a candle. He takes some matches, lights a candle, and then he just puts the candle down somewhere. But I assumed the next scene would be him, or not next scene, but the next bit would be him turning one of those tanks, so it would go like,
yeah.
And then him leaving, and leaving it set to.
And also, I watched this like half a year ago the first time, but I already can't remember, so I didn't know that. I was expecting him to set the house on fire. I couldn't remember what happens.
Yeah, I couldn't remember either. I think probably because it's been maybe a bit longer, about 3 years, I think, since I've seen it. But no, he doesn't do that. So spoilers. It's not spoilers because it's in this actual scene. He doesn't do that. What he does do is make coffee or pour coffee into 2 cups. At first he pours his own coffee, which is
obviously that's like that cup's obviously for him, and it's a mug, and the other one's like a fine china thing, which I guess is for her.
Yeah, which is for her, and he pours coffee into both of them. And I wrote down, because again, I wasn't still sure whether he was going to somehow try and make it look like an accident. I put down this could be either to make the scene look more convincing as an accident, maybe a half-finished coffee on the table or something, or because he's just batshit crazy. And I think I'm very much of the opinion now that he's just because he's crazy. And he's got this weird
then he
thing about
drinks
drinking
from her cup. Yeah, that's really weird.
That's very weird. And then he kind of, I put down he cries a solitary tear, but I think as you probably noticed better.
Well, it's really weird because he cries and then he like
doesn't realize what's happening.
Yeah, he touches his eye and then he's like,
I've got a leak.
My finger's red. He looks like Data in Star Trek when he's like, as if he was like crying. It's like, what is this? How can
there's a few episodes where he gets emotions, aren't there?
Why do I have emotions? Yeah. That's what it looks like. He's creepy as fuck.
He's weird. He's very creepy and weird. And then that's the end. We get the titles, the intro.
Got a feeling that I just can't lose. I got a feeling that I just can't.
Can't do the drum thing, but the drums are great, like doom, and that bass thing.
Yeah, drums are.
That was not at all like it.
The whole intro is fucking amazing. I know we said this, but every time I see it, I can't skip it. It's so good. It's just like that mirrored thing with the city.
The visuals are really good. It's really well done. And the LA thing and the mirror and the buildings going up and down. And yeah, it's very good. Split screen. So we get the titles, and then we cut to interior Bosch house, the Bosch residence, where you see his epic view over the night of it in LA on the lights and the hills and stuff. And he's listening to jazz and drinking whiskey or whatever.
Beer, case files, and jazz.
Just reading a bit of light reading.
Yeah, typical evening for Bosch.
Yeah, he's got case files open. And then it cuts to like daylight. So the next day we see Bosch. And presumably it's the next day. He's driving to a diner. He goes to a diner to meet.
Diner. We talked about this last episode because we thought it was in that episode, scene.
Yeah, that is a real problem with doing 2 episodes at once,
Yeah.
which I'm learning now. Apart from not recording them, which doesn't help.
Hey, it's been years since that happened. Like last time that happened to us was like 2008. Okay, we lost one episode two or three times. But
yeah, we did once do an interview twice that was 2 hours long with Alison Randall, and then I had to bring her
wasn't
back.
that when you sent her like a basket?
I think I did. Yeah, Alison's great. I knew she wouldn't mind, but like she's cool. But it was like I felt like such a tit.
That
like
was painful. Yeah.
You know that 2-hour conversation we just had? It didn't record. So can we have another 2-hour conversation? Because she's obviously not busy at all. Can't 4 hours out of a day.
But the good thing about that hurt so much that ever since I've been really paranoid.
Yeah.
Like that saved me a lot of arrows in my further podcasting career.
One
like
thing
in
I've
a
learned
decade
about
of
these H4
podcasting.
recorders as well is if you look across in the middle of a show and there's lights flashing, the big ring around the record button is
It's a
flashing.
bad
That's
sign.
danger. That's danger. That means it's not recording.
It should be on. It should be
be
glowing
on.
continuously.
I can confirm it is on and the timer's still rolling, so we are recording.
I just looked
now.
at mine as well.
I was just going to say, if yours is off now, this could be
heart attack.
Yeah. That's the thing. So this scene that we were talking about now with Harry going to the diner, we thought this was in the last episode. I did anyway. He goes to meet Eleanor, the ex-wife,
and this is like really like American diners as well. It's like the waitress turns up like, could you want a coffee? Here, have some coffee. Like her haircut, her whole the apron she's wearing. It's just like so real.
Yeah, I mean, you've been to some recently. I'll have to take your word for that because I've only ever been to like Portland, I think, in the US. I haven't been to the US a lot, unfortunately.
Well, I thought like
possibly for legal reasons, but I haven't been to the US for a lot. But in Portland, there's not a lot of those. It's a different kind of area. There's not those diners that you seem to see in every American.
Well, this was I was in Vegas, so Vegas, California. So it's the area that's filmed in. But I thought, you see these things in movies where you think like, yeah, that's so stereotypical. It's like when they film something in Paris, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the stereotypical Paris street that doesn't exist. Like with the old man on a bicycle and the guy with the baguette under his shoulder walking down the road. It's like,
it's true.
And I thought this was the American equivalent. And then Katie and me went to this diner. It's like, is this a movie set? This is like a fucking movie. This is like actually how it is? Okay. I guess that's how it is.
And as I pointed out on the Lost show, you were saying about like, I see things all the time, obviously shows where like somebody who's supposed to be English comes in and they have to be wearing like a bowler hat and carrying a cane and
Toodle pip.
I say, old boy. Yeah, and smoking a pipe or something. But we've talked about this many times, but the whole like idea in Hollywood particularly that like Germans equal like lederhosen and steins and umpire bands and basically
and pretzels and a Wurst.
Yeah. And
always chewing on a bratwurst.
And a Pilsner of some
Nobody knows what a Stein is. Like, actually, I thought for years, a Stein, the Americans invented that because Stein in German means stone.
Okay.
And that's this earthenware beer thing. I'd had
with a
never,
lid on it, with like
I had never seen that. And I'd been to Munich, right? So even in Munich, they only have those as a joke for tourists. But there are places in southern Germany where they actually have those. But anywhere where I grew up, where I live now, anything north of, I don't know.
You're really up in the north, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm really up in the north, but I grew up in the west as well. And like in the east, they don't have them. It's just like in the very south, some weird guys.
Yeah, they do. They have a very strange kind of thing.
It's hilarious.
This leads to I was going to say not a very nice breakfast, but actually kind of no breakfast really, because they get into an argument. But Harry, it starts off with Eleanor's clearly in the dress she's been wearing for like playing cards, and he says to her,
$30K. She was in the zone.
Says, yeah, the game just broke up, is what she says, and she tells about how she's won a load of money and stuff, and then she kind of casually mentions, "Oh, I need to tell you something. Maddie was in a car accident."
Mistake.
Who's the daughter, obviously, and Harry flips out. And he's like, "Who's driving? What about airbags?"
Well, she's just a little bit shook up by the airbag. She's like, "Airbag? Who's driving the car?" He's like, "I'm going over there. I'm going to interrogate them."
Yeah, I'm going
It's
to pistol whip them
conservative
until I
dad
find out.
Harry again.
And he's like, had they been drinking as well? He goes, were they drinking? And she goes, she says they weren't, and I believe her. And then he says, she's like, I'm okay. She says something, are you okay? And he says, I'm not okay. Where the hell is Reggie?
No,
Where the hell is Reggie?
Who's
the new husband.
She says Maddie's okay. She's like, I'm not okay. I'm sorry, I'm
That's
not okay.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. And then that descends.
How about some parental supervision?
Yeah, and it's like absentee. He says about absentee parenting, and she's like, "Well, you've been absent like the whole time,
marriage.
So I'm not taking any lectures from you." And then it goes back.
Well, he says, she says, "Where were you? Oh, yeah, right, you were in the zone." And then she says, basically, "Fuck you, you were in your own private zone or whole marriage." And he just looks like, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And then she just leaves and says she's going to the airport. So she kind of storms out and says she's going to the airport.
I try to imagine like what their marriage was like, because I know it from the books, and in the books it's very different.
The timeline's different in the book.
It's very different. The whole setup is very different. So I imagine in the show it must have been very different. And I imagine like Harry just never being at home because he's in the office reading murder books.
Given that he's there on Christmas Day, as we found out last time, looking for files, waiting to check out Herb's latest jumper. And even
like at home, Sunday morning at breakfast.
It's like Christmas Day, he's there, and he's like,
and Sunday morning, she's like sitting there and like wants to talk to him, and he's just like reading murder books. Like books with skulls in it.
He likes books with guns in them, and murders. She storms out, and then the next thing we see is Harry walking from the diner into his... It's unclear whether he has breakfast before coming back to his car. But he goes back to his car, and then his phone rings, his mobile phone. And it's our number one psycho, as I put it. He says he wants advice. So Waits says he wants advice from Harry about his mother's death, like how to cope with it. And he's like giving this victim bullshit. And he's like saying about how his mother died, and he's been trying to kind of play with Bosch the whole time, the whole series, and he hasn't really worked for him so far. But I think he's found something now. He thinks he's found something in using the mother, Harry's mother being murdered and all that, and being dead and all that. As like he says, where he starts to talk about how they've got something in common and all that bullshit. And he says, so I put down, he's trying to, I said this last time, but I'm going to read it again because it's such a good sentence. He's trying to earn Harry's sympathy, but he takes the tone of a victim, not mentioning the reason this awful thing happened to his mother, because he keeps going on about like, oh, this awful terrible, my mother, and she's dead, and all that bullshit. And I put down, not mentioning the reason this awful thing has happened to his mother is because he fucking suffocated her, the dick. So obviously we know that Harry doesn't know that, but I suspect being Bosch and the fact that he kind of knows everything he's probably worked out that he's killed his mother, or he's lying.
Well, it would be like like serial killer rings you up, talks about like his mother's dead. Either his mother died years ago and he's making that up, or he killed her. Like she didn't die on Christmas by accident now, right?
Well, maybe she got hit by a bus, who knows? Yeah, it's true. But he then he says, so Harry then kind of pushes his buttons by saying, why don't you put her with the others? He's like, what do I do with her now? I've just got to like put her in the ground or something. And Harry's like, why don't you put her with the others?
He actually says, this is really weird. She says, she's gonna rot like a piece of fruit. And there's nothing I can do. Like a piece of fruit. That's like really disturbing. Like I watched that and it's like, that is, I don't know. Whoever writes these lines for Waits has a real talent writing creepy lines. Just like subtle. It's subtle, but it's like
it's good.
It's not like I'm an evil guy, but like this just rot like.
But again,
a piece of fruit.
it very much tells you that like he doesn't see people as people. He sees them as things just to be turned on or off by killing them or whatever, So then he says, why don't you bury with the others? Bosch says to him, why don't you bury with the others? He says, you don't steal shovels, remember? You steal souls. To which Waits loses his shit and says, bury her with those fucking whores. Why do you not understand anything? And then he kind of like
he has a thing about prostitutes, right? He's not really pro sex workers. I get the feeling.
No, be it male or female, he just seems to want to kill prostitutes, which it seems like a real I don't know. I don't follow real life serial killers. It's not really my thing much, let's say. But I don't know. They always make out in these detective things that like serial killers always have a thing for killing like prostitutes. I don't know why that is. A lot of them seem to.
Well,
in these fictional ones.
I don't think they have. I don't know if it's a thing or like I definitely read and I'm interested in just like forensics and stuff just on the side, and I mean I read some stuff that I mean one of the basically they were asking the question why is it always prostitutes, and one of the reasons is they're just in a very vulnerable position. And
well, I was thinking that, and if you wanted to kill people, if you're that kind of weird person, how do you either get someone to come to you, which would be like an escort or something, or pick someone up on the street,
get them in a car, right? It's really hard to just like abduct somebody from the street, right? Be noticed, but like with prostitutes, they kind of have to do that.
It's a dangerous business.
So
it is, and also often, I suppose, as well, they have to operate in areas where there aren't any police, or they aren't going to be hanging around the police station looking for business, are they?
Yeah,
so
and
you also know if you're not going to less chance of running into like police while you're
and that people wouldn't report them missing.
True.
Probably.
That is. So then I put down Harry is poking him deliberately, which we said. But then we get to, as I said in the last kind of recording, I was saying about my kind of, this is one of my favorite episodes, this one, just because I think it's got a lot of Irv in it, Chief Irving. He's not Chief yet, but Irving.
I feel like they're generally getting better, these episodes. I don't know. I feel like the like many TV shows, it only hits its real stride in season 2, and I think you can see the ramp up here. You can see like they're getting into the characters, and like with Eleanor being involved and stuff.
Yeah, possibly the actors are getting more comfortable with their characters.
Yeah, I think Veliver it's been spot on since like the first scene we saw him in. But I feel like more like I think all the actors are great. I feel like the writers are writing better scenes. They're hitting this right a bit more. I don't know.
That's true.
But you never know because you don't know in which order these things were written.
That's very true.
But
yeah, you could be right. So while as Crate and Barrel are out of commission, Crate's in hospital, who's like they're my favorite duo. I think Irving's definitely I mean, obviously Bosch is cool and Edgar and others, but for some reason Irv improves everything. I think just anything with more Irv in it, which this episode has a lot of. It's pretty good.
He's just walking cool. He's just like he dominates the scene. Yeah.
He's like Shaft or something. He just kind of walks in, like, hey, baby. So we cut to
who's
the
that sexy
residence.
dick who gets all the chicks?
Irv, yeah, exactly.
Irv.
Shut your mouth.
It's Irv.
I'm talking about Irv. Anyway, so he says, so the Irving residence exterior, he's doing pretty well for himself. Nice house. And you see, like, his wife is drinking coffee or something
Lovely
outside.
wife as well.
As you pointed out, his wife's very nice as well.
They change her, though, in season 2. They get
maybe she wasn't nice enough. Maybe he was like, I'm Irv. I need you.
I'm upgrading my wife.
I'm upgrading, yeah. Maybe. Can we get another actress for this? So
need more tits on my wife.
Yeah, it's very politically kind of police politics, or just general politics, actually, heavy, this one, because that's why there's more of Irv in it, I suppose. But he's discussing the whole business of what's going on with her, and he tells her he's going to see this Reverend that you looked up the first name of, but Reverend
Isaiah Ott.
Yeah, so he's going to see him, he tells her that. And then it tells her that he's going to ask him to back O'Shea and all that shit. And then he says to her, because she doesn't really understand why, he says, well, new mayor, new chief of police. And then she's like,
new media, new rules.
I understand. Yeah, basically. Could we get him to do that? That'd be brilliant. If we could, we'd never be able to afford him, but...
I'm Irv Irving. New media, new rules. Irv out.
Yeah. Irv out, yeah. So she says to him, remember, just because a man wears his collar turned upside down doesn't mean he can be trusted. To which he goes, like, as if I don't know that. Or something like that. He gives her some kind of line like, yeah.
I imagine, like, he and his wife go back and forth like this all the time. Like, over breakfast.
And then he kind of saunters out, drinks a bit of his coffee and just saunters out through the kitchen. Or back into the house and out to wherever he's going.
Every morning he leaves the house, he just goes, out.
About, yeah, he says that in every scene, even if you can't hear it, he's saying it as he's walking away. You can't see him. We cut to Hollywood Homicide Division interior, obviously, where Kiz and Barrel are looking through the massive mountain of files.
That would work as well. Kiss and Barrel.
Kiss and Barrel. No, yeah, I don't mind Kiss, but you can't break up a duo like Crate and Barrel.
No, but it sounds like Kiss and Barrel.
Yeah, I suppose Kiss and Barrel. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. What they need is, I'm trying to think of any things that go with Kiss, and the only thing I can think of is like, like Kismet. So you could have like Kiz and some other guy whose like surname is something to do with like something like Met, but he'd shorten it to Met, and he'd be like Kismet. But anyway,
his name's Bam. Kiss Kiss Bam Bam.
Yeah, that could work. Yeah,
I love how Bosch like goes like
Kiss and Tell.
Yeah. Oh,
Kiss
perfect.
Tell,
You nailed it.
If you had another one who was called like Tell or something, and they'd be like Kiss and Tell.
Never Kiss and Tell.
You never Kiss and Tell.
I like how
I have to say that.
I like how
Irv doesn't look like a guy who would kiss and tell.
No.
To be honest.
I like how
he's too smooth for that.
How Bosch walks in and asks him how he's going, and Barrel goes like, "Are you familiar with the term needle in a haystack?"
Yeah.
Because they're looking through the 8,000 files.
Yeah, so they're obviously not happy about the amount of files they've got to go through. And then Bosch suggests something that he thinks will help, which is to make it quicker, is to look for this notation, this like code that they put onto people's files when they've been sent to the trunk, which is
he found that in his file because he was sent there.
Yeah, and then Kiz says they put kids in solitary, and she's kind of like upset or surprised, which Barrel immediately just follows up with, "That was you, I bet," to Bosch. And Bosch is like, "Yeah, once or twice," and Bosch tells him about how he used to get in trouble.
I gave him a bit of lip.
Yeah, he's like, and then some guy pushes you in the lunch queue, and he's like, he gives his whole story.
Once again, I sympathize with Bosch wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So they're they're going to use that code to try and help, and then try and help cut the search down. Edgar turns up and tells them that the forensics guy Jasper has called him, and he wants to show Bosch and him something, which is when they kind of leave. Oh, before that, did I put down the thing? No, I didn't mention the thing about
the drawing.
Yeah, so people are pissed off in the station, clearly, with Bosch, as we know, over the business with him kind of like, and Stokes, and not supporting Brasher's story and all the rest of it, over Stokes shooting her or whatever. And so the other people in the station have made a picture, have got like a picture of Jesus, like printed out like an oil painting of Jesus and stuck on a picture of Harry's head, and he's like forgiving Stokes, and they put little wearables on saying, "I forgive you, Stokes," or all that, whatever. And he's like, "Very funny, guys, very funny."
Well, he's like, and Kiss is like, don't mind that, but he's looking at it like, what technology did they use to make this? Because Bosch clearly, as we know, doesn't know anything about computers. You think, did they draw this by hand? How did they make this?
This crayon.
He doesn't know what Photoshop
excellent.
is.
No, he probably doesn't actually, because he doesn't really know what email is either, or any of these other things. So they leave presumably to go and see Jasper. And then
maybe he said airbag like that because he didn't know what an airbag was.
Yeah. A bag of air. A bag full of air? Or a bag made of air.
She hit an airbag.
Yeah, that's true. The next scene, we talked about this as another scene that we kind of talked a bit about in the last episode, although it wasn't from that episode. The fact that this idea that Brasher's becoming really popular now in the station because she's been shot, apparently, which is what makes you popular. So we see her entering the station in her civilian clothes. She's talking to other people who are like, "Oh, Brasher, you're back." And the dude says to her, like, "How do you feel?" And she's like, "Oh,
high five, Brash, high five."
Yeah, and it's all very much like, and he actually says as she walks she just says something like, I've been punched in the tit by a bear or something, and he just goes, "You're all right, Brasher." And it's like, all right, everyone likes her now, so like, everybody loves Brasher, apparently because of that. And then she goes to see Mank, who's in the dispatch bit as usual, and he says that Captain Pounds needs to see her like straight away, maybe ASAP. So she heads to Pound's office, which is, as we talked about last time, he starts off being kind of nice to her, and he's like, "Oh, how are you? And how do you feel?"
Yeah, and you feel like, well, if Pounds likes you, that's not a good sign.
No, but then he immediately just goes, "Your story's bullshit, Brasher, isn't it, Brasher?" He totally just flips 180, and he's like, "You're full of shit." And he tells her that like the evidence, the GSR, as you put it, the gunshot residue.
Residue. That's what they say. Yeah.
He's like, do you think we found gunshot residue on his hands? Do you think? And he basically tells her that all the evidence is supporting Stokes' version of events, and not hers. And then he makes a kind of an ultimatum to her, where he says, if you report Bosch for sexual harassment, or basically forcing you into a sexual relationship, then you might be able to keep your job. And because we know Pounds is doing anything to try and fuck over Bosch all the time. But she, I mean, like, doesn't really understand, which makes sense, because at first it doesn't make a lot of sense. She's like, well, how's that going to help? And he says, like, no one downtown wants to see a sex scandal, especially involving Bosch. And he tells her that they'll bury the third unsat thing that she's going to get, which will be curtains for her, just because they don't want publicity for this. And she says, just tell people that, he coerced you into this, and you felt like you had to have sex with him because he was your superior and whatever else. And then she doesn't feel happy about it, and she just says, he didn't coerce me. And then Pound seems to get pissed off.
Yeah.
This line that we both mentioned, he's like, he fucked you, Brasher, every which way he fucked you out of your career with the LAPD. Are you going to let that stand? Which is a good line. And then she's still kind of unsure, really, it seems, of what's going on. Meanwhile, back in the Irving show, which Irv Irving, The Adventures of Irv Irving, he's gone to a church. It's an interior church, or whatever it is, and he's gone for his meeting. Obviously, he talked about earlier with this Reverend Isaiah Art, the Rev, yeah,
Irv and the Rev.
Ev and the Rev, yeah, and that's a band name if ever I've heard one. But they have this political posturing shit going on where, like, he says to the Reverend says to him, "Can I give you the 10-cent tour?" Meaning of the church. To which replies in his ever coolness, he's like, "Oh, I am familiar with this church. I used to come here every Sunday with my parents." And then, like, the other guy says, "Oh, of course, I forgot. You're from the community." At which he just goes, "I don't." And in his usual kind of, I'm from round here, you should support me kind of way.
It sounds like he used to go to that church until the Reverend changed. Then he was like,
yeah, maybe, or he has
asshole.
Or maybe they're implying that he hasn't been in so long that the Reverend's forgotten.
Like, yeah, in the book, it's really interesting. In the books, there is a chief who is like a Christian guy, and like they talk about how everybody in the department's becoming a born-again Christian, because you basically have to be in the Sunday church meeting the Reverend goes to have any chance of being like promoted in the department.
Mm-hmm. It's like the equivalent of being in the golf club or whatever, where you have meetings on the golf course or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of this, and Irv and him are kind of like pushing at each other. But then Irv basically says to the Reverend that they can help each other, and he wants him to support O'Shea for mayor, to which they get into a bit of a negotiation. And the Reverend Ott says that he wants Irv to reduce the heavy policing policy on the streets. Well, and as you pointed out, he mentions like the Gestapo tactics.
Well, he said what he wants is, quote, a halt to Gestapo tactics in South LA, and then Irv goes, well, we're hardly the Gestapo. Yeah, because we're black. Yeah. That's one reason. But yeah, I like it that they mentioned the Ferguson riots, which
so
is
I was just going to say, he threatens him, doesn't he, really?
Yeah.
Ott says to him, like, he wants to reduce to heavy policing, and he just says the last thing anybody wants is a Ferguson, Missouri situation here on the streets of LA.
So this is...
Irv is like, nobody wants that.
Yeah, so this is the riots in 2014, which, kicked the bottle over. I'm sorry.
I heard that, actually, yeah. I heard that
which are, lots of bottles by now. I'm on the fourth one now.
Oh, shit.
Which, 2014, when they filmed this, was really recent, which is interesting because in the books in the 90s, there is this whole race angle happening as well, the power politics. Although Irving isn't black in the books, but in the books it's all about the Rodney King trials. So they're always going on about the LAPD's getting a hard time after Rodney King.
Yeah, there were huge riots in LA in '92. The whole place.
And they are worried in the books, constantly worried that something kicks off. Like, I think it comes to a head in Angel's Flight, the novel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
where they actually, in the novel, they do have riots later on, and they're always worried. Irving's always worried that they'll have more Right, and I think they're taking that angle, and I think they put it nicely into current times.
Yeah, and this business
Here.
about like with Gestapo tactics, for want of a better word or term, the LAPD became known as like a military force on the streets, basically, because they would like, they'd basically just go in with fucking armored tanks and all kinds of shit, and they were really hardcore on people.
Kind of like the
particularly
Hamburg
black people.
Kind of
was
like the
problem.
Hamburg police department in Germany.
But as you said, it's really nice that they updated it. Well, it's not nice in a way because this shit's still going on, which is not nice. But they were able to update it by saying we don't want a Ferguson situation, which was a relative.
I found that really on point when I was going to LA, and I was joking to a colleague and saying I'm a bit worried of getting shot down there, and
187,
Yeah, and my colleague, it's Bosch Taipin, by the way, in the books. It's like a 187. But like, and my colleague just shot right back. It's like, don't worry, you've got nothing to worry about. You're not black. And I'm like, yeah, he's
from the police,
he's on point.
Presumably haven't got as
well. Yeah, I was worried about getting shot by the police. Yeah.
Yeah, that Ferguson. I think we were doing Linux Outlaws still at the time when Ferguson thing happened, because I remember maybe we talked about it a bit. I'm not sure, but that shit was crazy. They were like armored police. They were basically military units, effectively. But they were like police, supposed to be police, but they were like military, and they're firing ridiculous amounts of bullets into houses and shit.
Yeah,
like,
I mean they're not doing the ridiculous amounts of bullets here, but like Hamburg police is very known to be the most
they're known to be
militant police in Germany. They have tanks now. When the G20 were going on, they had the police doesn't have automatic rifles, and they had automatic rifles. Okay, they only shot like rubber bullets, but still.
I thought you were going to say they only shot about 5 people, but
with rubber bullets. The funny thing is, they got all these tanks. Like these water thrower tanks.
Yeah.
And this summer, which was a really hot summer, and they had a problem that all the trees are dying in Germany. And here in Hamburg as well, like in the inner city parks, but like in London, there's lots of little parks around with trees. And the trees were dying, and we have the Stadtpark is right over where I live, basically. And they were using the water thrower tanks to water the trees.
The water, yeah.
Like I kind of like that. That was kind of cool.
It's just a big hose, isn't it? Really, I suppose. Yeah. So
it's just like the left hate that the police have those tanks. It's like all the tree huggers hated that, but then they were saving the trees with the tanks. It's
you need water. Although you could use fire engines for that, I suppose, which is still a similar thing.
True.
Yeah, so that's the end of the scene pretty much, is that like they have this discussion, and he's like he'll back him if. So they may come to some kind of tacit deal, which we'll find out later is not quite what Irv thinks it is.
Yeah.
Which is that the guy will get, this Reverend Art will get the black vote for O'Shea to be mayor. In return, he thinks that Irv's going to be, and Irv thinks he's going to be chief of police, and then he'll just like, you'll change the tactics of the policing around here for me. Which is the payback, because he says it. What do I get out of this, or something, doesn't he? At one point, he's like, "Well, what do I get out of all this?" So then we cut to the crime lab interior, where he following on from the earlier phone call thing about them going to see Jasper. Jasper's there, who's the forensics guy.
Okay, hold it here, because they call him Jasper, right? And I checked the subtitles. They call him Jasper.
Yeah.
But his name tag, his name tag says Leonard H.
Oh, maybe it's a nickname.
I don't know. His name is very clearly. I mean, this is HD, right? He's right in the camera. His name tag very clearly says just Leonard H.
Maybe the continuity guy who forgot to bring Bosch's gun and the other one was like, just stick any badge on him, it'll be fine. He's like the world's worst continuity guy.
I mean, it's like he's like from that era in the 90s when they did TNG, and it didn't matter what the little signs on the door set. It was only a problem when they remastered that in HD.
And you could see it.
And he doesn't understand that he's now in the HD era. It's like, put anything on that name tag. You can put a penis on that. Nobody will be able to see that. Like,
that could be true, actually.
Dude,
and this was made in like 2015.
We're filming this in 4K, man.
Yeah, sort that shit out. So Jasper's there. He tells Bosch and Edgar about he's found the backpack straps from the backpack thing.
Maybe that's his code name.
I thought that was just
Agent
a nickname.
Jasper.
Well, obviously Crate and Barrel, and that's not their names, so who knows? So anyway, he says that he from the backpack straps from Arthur's bag or whatever. He says he found evidence that Nicholas Trent had Arthur's skateboard in his house. So what he does is he gets the skateboard which they brought from the guy Nicholas Trent, who, if you're having trouble keeping up, is the guy who killed himself at the start. He from the skateboard they take off the trucks.
No,
basically,
what he says is he wanted to send all the stuff back to the, like, he finished his analysis. He wanted to send it back. He thought, I'm going to double check everything, because he
says something about the backpack straps.
Well, no. He says the backpack has skateboard straps. So I wanted to see if that skateboard was maybe strapped to that backpack. So I checked the skateboard for fibers.
That would show that it was the same.
Right. So I took the wheel assembly off because the fibers might be under the wheel assembly. I didn't find any fibers, but what he did find is under the wheel assembly, somebody had scratched AD 1993 into the thing. And to which Bosch...
He says as well, this is quite a good skateboard, and anyone who had this would have marked it.
So Bosch is like, okay, that's Arthur Delacroix. In the book, he's actually going. They think at first it's 1993 AD, like as in Anno Domini.
Oh, yeah.
And then Bosch goes, "Who says AD? Nobody says that these days." And then they figure out that it's Arthur Delacroix.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I suppose maybe they thought that was a bit more complicated than they needed for the TV version. I don't know. But so they're like, good work, Jasper, or whatever. And as they're leaving,
whatever your name is.
Yeah, Jasper, whatever, forensic guy number 4. Good work. And then he says to Bosch, like, can you hang on a minute? So Edgar walks out, and then he says he needs to tell him something, and he goes on to tell him that he's fucked up with regard to the Waits case, and he says he's like, so what have you done? And he basically says that he got a phone call from someone claiming to be from like the AD's office, or DA, sorry, the attorney's office, asking for information about the Waits case.
For years
from the Delacroix case. And that.
So Bruce Springsteen in the song Atlantic City thinks the DA can get no relief. And for years, I had no idea what DA stands for. I asked my English teacher, and nobody fucking knew. Because nobody ever anywhere explains what that means. Like in any TV show, they always say DA. But like it took like for like the internet and Wikipedia to come around till like 2003 or whenever.
It's only an American thing as well, because we don't have a DA here. There's no district attorney. We have an equivalent, but they're not called the district attorney. Well, so in America, you have like the top criminal prosecutor for the the state government or whatever it is, or that area is the district attorney.
What they're called in the UK?
Lawyer. Yeah. We have that, but they're not called the district
What
attorney.
Are they called then?
I don't know. They have magistrates. And
so in Germany, it's the Staatsanwalt.
That sounds more imposing. But
or the Oberstaatsanwalt, or the I think there's a Bundesstaatsanwalt. Bundesanwaltschaft. Something.
It sounds more. It just sounds intimidating. Anything you say.
Well, it's the head. Yeah, it's just also the voice. You have to put the voice on. The Staatsanwalt.
Yeah. And a monocle or something.
Sounds like Gestapo. Gestapo, Staatsanwalt, sounds the same thing, doesn't it? It's like...
Yeah, that's kind of true, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So the DA. So basically, Waits pretended to be from the DA's office. Yeah. He did some social engineering, and if you think back, that was the call in the prison when he needed a phone, and he said he wants to call mom.
So that's what I was thinking about. Yeah, that's obviously who he actually called.
Well, he might have called mum as well.
Starfish and all that, and he's like, then you put it together that that's how Waits knew something that wasn't in the paper, which was the starfish.
So he was basically, I'm from the DA's attorney's office.
Which Edgar,
I need to know.
Ever lazy, was like, he knows about the starfish. It's done. It's cut and dry. Let's go home.
Yeah. So
and you're like, Fucking hell.
So basically, what he did, if you don't, let's just recap. Is he said, I'm from a DA's office. I need to know what was found at the gravesite. I don't have time. I can't reach Bosch. Blah. And then he told them, and that's how we know about the starfish. And that's when, that's as you said, when Edgar was like, oh, he knows about the starfish, just cut and dry, it's close the case.
Edgar's always so keen to just take any kind of like that sort
well,
of, that
he actually does this again. Now Bosch goes out, leaves. So Jess was like, do you want me to, I fucked up, do you want me to resign? Bosch gives him like a dressing down a little bit.
He just walks out.
Well, he says, did you know what you did? And then the guy
says, you gave this guy his get out of jail free card. Have you got any idea what you've done?
And then he's like, do you want me to resign? And Bosch just doesn't say anything and leaves. Then he talks to Edgar in the car park.
And he gets pissed off.
Yeah, and Edgar's like, did you kick his ass? And then Bosch is like, I didn't have to. So the thing is...
And he says at least he solved the Delacroix.
Yes! And we can close the case now because it was obviously Trent.
He's like, I don't know if I buy it. And he says, like, open your eyes, partner. We were right about Trent.
He wants to close the case every time. That's just like Edgar. He doesn't want to do any work. He's like... and we'll get back to that in a minute, by the way. This is a theme that goes through the whole episode. And he's like, so it was Trent. It was Trent all the way. I said it was Trent. Let's close the case.
Yeah, let's
and
go.
Then,
can I go and buy some shoes now?
Yes!
Like what he seems to care
And then
about.
Bosch really, in a really pissed off way, says like, go ahead. Then just go ahead and write it up.
Yeah, he says, you write it up. Or whatever. But he's clearly not happy about it. But yeah, you're right, Ed. There's a real theme to the whole series, really, which is Edgar doesn't really want to go any further into anything. He's happy
I need to buy shoes and tend to my real estate business.
Yeah. So we've got we go back.
So
to
that's in the book as well. They keep on about how he's always by the numbers, and that's part of it that he just wants to.
Well, he wants to get his figures up. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
and
scorecard, yeah,
also working 9 to 5 all the time.
Like it's no way to make a living. Dolly Parton. I love that song. Ain't no way to make a living.
I just love that you love Dolly Parton. She's great.
That song's amazing though. It's all that business about like the boss is busting your balls and he's got that man's out to get me and all this stuff and where's my promotion anyway. So back from Dollywood to Waite's workshop.
Dollywood. From Dollywood to Hollywood.
I put down he's got some impressive black high heels on his desk.
Oh, yes. And he's... Yeah, I noticed that too. And he's doing something to his phone. I can't understand what he's doing there.
Yeah, he's modifying a mobile phone, it looks like. But they don't really show you what he's doing. He's put some kind of... Do you know what it might be now that I think about it? He's put some kind of like metal sheet into his phone, it looks like, and he's resealing the case.
Why?
Now, do you think they're trying to make out that stops them from tracing his phone? Because later on that'll become important. But... how would that work? Because if your phone can't then reach the cell towers, you can't ring anyone. It's useless. So
also, they're only pinging him on.
As well, not bother.
The obvious problem is here that they're only pinging him every 30 minutes.
Maybe.
Although, but he must have been 30 minutes in the house, so there must have been where he is. I mean, that whole part of the show makes no sense at all. And I feel like you and me know more about cell phones and cell phone tracking than anybody involved in this
probably.
show.
Maybe Bosch is actually really bad at it in real life. Titus Welliver, and he was like, I'm in charge of this show, and this makes total sense. Get that guy to hack the mainframe. What mainframe? What are you talking about? Anyway, so Waits is doing some like preparing shit to go out in his car. He goes out in his car.
It might also be Connolly. I don't think he's not up to.
Well, I assumed he was hunting again, so I put down he's hunting again.
Yeah, I thought that too. Yeah.
And I put down, because from based what he said about his mother and all that and all the rest of it, I put down he's hunting whores in exclamation marks to add to his souls.
Sex workers, Dan. Sex workers.
Yeah, no, that's his word. It's why it's in quotations. He was saying fucking whores. And
I'm just trying to save you from the Twitter mob.
No, it's fine. I'm quoting what the character says in the thing. The opinions may not be my own. It's so I put down, is he trying to add their souls to his collection? And then I put definitely batshit. So then he goes to a back alley and his car drives to like an alley behind in between two buildings, and he goes to look at this big dumpster thing, the big like trash bins that they have, and he's checking the locks on the bin.
It's very American. It's not a buffer.
No, it's not. And he's checking the locks and stuff, and he clearly has.
Well, he sees that there's a lock. I think that's a problem.
Yeah. So Then that's the end of that scene. Then we get to this bit, which we also, I think, alluded to in the last show, about Brasher being more popular with everyone, including Edge now, apparently. We cut to the gym, the police gym, where Edge is, like, lifting some weights. He's in beast mode or whatever. And he's like, whatever the fuck they call it these days. I don't lift weights. Yeah, he's lifting weights and all that shit. And then,
well,
actually,
that's not Wade's the killer.
I was just going to say that'd be weird if he was like bench pressing the dude up and down. No, it's like weights, as in LWEI
dumbbells.
Yeah. And Brasher turns up in the gym and they start talking and stuff. And she tells him what Pounds wants her to do to Bosch. And then Edge is like totally.
How many pounds is he lifting?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. He basically tells her she should do it. He's like, fuck Bosch and all that. And like, so he's pissed off with Bosch.
Yeah, he gave him the stink eye earlier as well when he passed him in the corridor. Sorry.
Yeah. So he tells her to do it, but she's still not convinced because she says, and this is something we kind of alluded to earlier, that she says it fucks my career too. I'll be stuck on patrol forever. To which Edge just like goes, I like the street. But I know a college girl like you's got to have ambition or something like that and whatever. But then he goes back to like pumping iron or whatever.
So she comes to another analysis. This is not the bullets analysis from last episode where she says she's fucked either way because she'll get fired either way. She's like, no, okay, if I side with Pounds, I'm going to keep my job. But then everybody knows I fucked over Bosch and every male colleague ever will know that. And maybe I'll never get promoted.
Yeah, because Billets likes Bosch, and she seems protective of him, and
but also like if she calls on Bosch for like sexual harassment, then any other male colleague she works with, she's gonna be they're gonna be scared of her, and she's never gonna get promoted.
You don't want to be sent on patrol alone, and she's gonna say, "So I've done something." Yeah. Saying no, it's not true. Because whatever Bosch is, he's very smooth. They all seem to be willing to go to bed with him. It's not like
he doesn't.
There's no bag and taser move needed for him.
There's no coercion needed. He's just like Bosch.
Yeah, he's fine. Then this is it. This is a really good scene. I love this scene. So the next scene is we see Bosch bumps into Brasher, as you can imagine, at the station, and he immediately goes, "You're in like your uniform," because he knows she's gone back to service, presumably in the uniform. And then they start to he tells her that she can't be there because it's bad, and he says you need to go home and take leave and all this shit. And then she's like, whatever, she's pissed off. But he says to her, you've got some balls coming. You've got the balls to come here fronting your phony story. And
he says, at least have the balls and man up. It's like a double Spuds.
That's fair. Yeah.
Spuds, speaking of Spuds, do you smell Spuds?
No, it's okay. The oven switches itself off. So
wow. What's that kind of smart home technology? Wow.
It's no, it's not smart home. It's got like a basic timer on it. It's most mechanical ovens can do that. Anyway, but I
don't have that. That's too high technology. I don't understand that.
They should be fine. It's only baked potatoes anyway, so they're not really gonna matter too much. It's not like a souffle or something. Which would be a
that reminds me of my mother who used to have they have this oven who has a pyrolysis thing where you can switch it to that thing where it cleans itself by burning all residue in the oven to a crisp.
Yeah.
And they were like they were doing like my parents were doing this roast dinner, I think. And my mother switched it one knob too far from grill to pyrolysis, and it just basically burned the bird to like it completely obliterated it, including the bones, to just ash.
But yeah, that's a similar story to I don't remember it because I was too young, but I remember my dad always tells this story about when they first got a microwave because nobody believed that you could cook anything that quickly. It was at Christmas and they were doing a Christmas pudding, like a microwave one. And it said on it that you put it in the microwave for, I don't know, 2 minutes or something. And apparently him and my mum both went, 2 minutes? It usually takes hours. So they put it in for like half an hour. And then like obviously it just exploded everywhere because it had been massively overcooked. So they had to throw it out. But yeah, so technology, hey.
Pizza, so they have pizza for dinner again.
Yeah, they have a big argument anyway, Brasher, and they have this public argument. Everyone's watching them.
Oh yeah, in the hallway of the station.
Yeah, so I love like Mank.
And Mank comes out.
Great. with his glasses on his forehead,
Yeah.
which is a brilliant
It's like-
touch. He's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And then there's like all this shit going on, and then she storms
He's
off. Obviously,
great.
it's like, "Fuck you, Harry."
He's a great actor for just having such a minor role. He is
He is great.
amazing.
So she storms off, and everyone watches her, and then he's there, and I put down Mank brackets glasses on head says, "You got quite away with the ladies there, Harry." To which Boss says, "Ain't it the truth?"
I just love. I think he had the glasses in one previous scene, and I can just believe that the actor went like, "I need glasses.
Yeah,
we need it in this scene because I read the script. I need to set up that other scene, and I need glasses for that scene."
That's true. Maybe the continuity person did their job for once. And went, maybe he needs the glasses for the next scene. Anyway, so yeah, that's quite a nice ending to the scene, I thought. And then we get some more politics in this one, obviously, because we then cut to an exterior bit where O'Shea and Irv are kind of. I put O'Shea and Irv are on a walk and talk.
Yeah.
So they're kind of walking along, having a talk
in front of the courthouse in LA.
Yeah, and then so they're discussing, what's going on, and O'Shea tells him that tells Irv that he was visited by Reverend Ott, who offered to deliver him the vote that he needed, and then he tells him that what he wanted in return was like something he wants a seat on the police commission, and Irv's like, "What the hell? That's not the deal that's not what we agreed," and all this shit. So he's like really pissed off.
To quote Irv, "Fuck off, that's extortion."
That's
no.
This is extortion, yeah. And O'Shea, who's always a bit kind of slippery and slimy, and that, he's like, "Well, we're getting the win."
No, we're committed now.
Yeah, and he says, "Just forget about it. It's fine." To which Irv goes, "I won't forget this."
Yeah, and you know that it's Irv, right? It's going in the book of grudges.
That motherfucker's going on the book in my book.
The book of grudges, yeah.
Yeah, and I put down Otter's played Irv, and
it's like this thick. It's like a 3-foot thick book, and he played Irv, but don't play Irv.
No,
not a smart
Irv
move.
Always wins in the end.
Yeah,
he does. Meanwhile,
he's gonna roll down that window, and you're fucked.
That's true. They basically O'Shea's told him that they're going to go along with it. They're going to get the votes. And then we cut to Bosch, who's at the Trent house now, the guy from the first one who killed himself because he's now found out about the starfish thing and all the rest of it. And he goes back to the house. And then
listen to the tape of the interview. Listening to the tape. It's like
as he's doing it, he's listening to Edgar talking to the guy when they were there, and he's looking around, and he sees another guy, one of the neighbors, walking the dog through the window.
It's Dr. Guyot, the doc.
Yeah, I was going to say doctor. Yeah, it says doctor on the thing. Yeah. So he basically asks him about, does he have any memories of the time, and asks him other stuff. And then he asks, like, what about the families who lived here and all the rest of it. And the guy says to him, the doctor, not so many children on the streets these days. And then they get into a bit of a discussion, during which it turns out that, like, the guy says to him, the doctor says to him, one of the reasons there's less children, basically, to cut a long story short, is because the people who used to live in that house were like foster parents, and they had
all the children.
Yeah, someone called the Blaylocks, and he tells Bosch to ask about the Blaylocks, to interview them, who moved some years back. Few years back, he says, and they had a lot of foster children. And then Harry rings like Edgar, who again, as you said, has not done much work, and he says, like, have you followed up the Blaylocks? And he says, I rang the Blaylock woman, and it was fine. And he says to him, what does he say? He says, you're making it sound like I dropped the ball here, to Harry.
What was I supposed to do? Drive up there to Nopa is a 6-hour drive. Cut to Bosch on the fucking 6-hour drive to Nopa. Like,
exactly.
That's the difference between Bosch and Jerry. Jerry dodges all the work.
It's true. Do some work is what you're supposed to do.
Bosch is like, fuck it, I'm going there now. It's like the case.
Yeah. And you get a really nice driving montage, passage of time. He's driven the 6 hours, whatever. And he arrives at the house, like, in the middle of the night, it looks
4 a.m.
Yeah, we find out later it's 4 a.m. But I put down, has he slept in his car outside? But it's like 4 a.m., so he's been there a while. But
no, what he does is, like, he arrives at 4 a.m., sees the house. It's, like, cold. It's
just
snowing.
Sits outside in his car.
And what he does is he just sleeps and waits until the morning, until the lights go on, because he doesn't want to wake the people.
Yeah.
He could have just gone and woken them up. He's a police officer, And some people would have done that. But in that case, he's kind of like Columbo. He's very
He is, yeah, that's true.
civil.
He sees Mr. Blaylock, who comes out of the house to get his newspaper or something, and he goes to talk to him, and he says, you know, do you want a coffee? And he says, I'll take anything hot at this
You
point.
know what I think in that scene?
Mm.
I think it's actually quite warm. I think all the snow on the ground is fake snow. And I swear that the breath, because he doesn't have like condensating breath in the car, but in the scene when he gets out, they both are breathing and there's like this, you know, smoke, you know, the
Maybe
breath.
just out of shot, they've both got like cigarettes that you can't see, and they're like
vapes. They're vaping. No, they're
vaping. Yeah, they're vaping. Yeah. Although Harry's not going to do vaping, he can't do technology. He's going to be like, "What is this?"
An electronic
it's like some kind
cigarette.
of robotic cigarette.
No, I think it's CGI. I think the breath, like the condensating air, that looks like CGI to me. I think they put that in post.
That's really easy to do these days.
No, I think the continuity guy went like, "Hey, there's snow on the ground. Isn't it supposed to be cold? Can we fix that in post? Hello."
During the 10 minutes he was awake, and
I swear to God, I would be a great like continuity guy on TV shows, because I always see these things that other people don't. Like, I've been watching TNG, and there's like these things, like somebody jumps and then there's a cut and he falls and it's like a completely different direction. Or it's not cut good. And the door opens and Riker walks into Picard's office and you can see through the door on the other side the bridge set isn't there, it's just black.
Yeah.
It's like,
they didn't bother so much in them days. I think, as you said, though, a lot of it was like, no one will really see this. It's not going to be hard to see.
Yeah.
But now, especially with something like TNG, as you said, I mean, that was out before like DVDs existed. So even the ability to like pause an image and have it crystal clear, even if it's not HD, just pause it without it doing that thing videotapes used to do where they'd wobble everywhere and you couldn't really see anything. I think they didn't even think about that, because they were like, well, nobody's going to pause this and get like... There's loads of films from like the 70s where they've clearly thought that no one will ever see these bits. Like a few of them. Anyway, meanwhile, back at the Blaylock's house, he gets his coffee.
Meanwhile, back at the point.
The guy says to him, Mr. Blaylock says, every cop I've ever known takes it black. His coffee, and then he talks about how he's worked in police stations on civilian side. Or
no, he was station commander for the fire department, and he worked in the fire department station right next to the Hollywood police station.
That's the one.
Yeah.
On the other side. So
that's also why they talked. No, Bosch talks to him and his wife, trying to figure out stuff of the foster.
She's very pissed off.
She's very defensive. She thinks she wants to pin something on the children. They had 18 foster children. Obviously from different difficult circumstances, and I think she has bad experience with the police in that regard. And the husband, because he used to be a fireman, he wants to help. He knows that Bosch is just doing his job. He doesn't want to pin anything.
Yeah, she keeps saying he's going to pin it on one of our kids and all this shit. And she's really, really not happy. She's very hostile. And she keeps saying, you're going to try and pin something on one of our kids. And then the husband talks to her and he says, let's answer some of his questions. And then he recognizes Stokes in the photo, the husband. Yeah. When he asks him about Arthur, he shows him the photo, which, as you pointed out, he always seems to have on him. The husband goes.
Oh, earlier, when he goes to the house that used to belong to the Blaylocks, before he calls Jerry,
he gets
he looks at the yard and then looks at the garage door thing, and then he pulls out of his back pocket, he pulls the photograph and goes,
and holds it up perfectly.
It's obviously like for the viewer, that's the same garage door the photo was taken in front of. But Bosch always has these, it's like those pervert photographs he had in his jacket. He's like, always has them. It's like, this is evidence. I need to carry that with me.
If he wore like a Mac all the time with like big pockets, you'd be quite worried about him. Like, that's more of a Columbo thing again. He always wore a big Mac.
Except Columbo can't find anything. He can't even find his fucking pencil half of the time.
Yeah, that's true. And he's always looking for somewhere to put his cigar out.
I love when Columbo has Columbo has this. I love Columbo.
I love Columbo. Yeah.
And in his trench coat, he has like these he pulls like an egg out at some point at the crime scene. He's just cracking an egg, a hard-boiled egg, because it's in the middle of the night. He needs to eat something. He's got like fucking evidence. Sometimes in one episode, he pulls like fucking files out of his coat
with like dirty hands and stuff.
Yeah,
he's
oh no, these are our receipts. I'm not looking for that. What's the fuck?
Yeah, and his car is always like a dump and smoke coming out of it.
Best car ever. Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Blaylock, as I mentioned, recognizes from the photo that it's Stokes, and he also says, "I think I might have taken this photo." And all the kids lined up, and he asks him about the different kids, and he says, "Do you recognize this kid?" He tells them that Arthur Delacroix was killed, and they say they're sorry, but they don't really know him. And don't know who the name of the kid, don't know the kid by name. And then he goes, "What about this kid?" and points at a kid in the picture, to which he says, "Oh, Goofy, Goof." Everyone used to call him Goof or Goofy because he used to skateboard with his front legs, his legs the other way round, his feet the other way round, which they described as like Goofy style. To which, obviously, Bosch just goes, "Well, that was Arthur."
How wouldn't that work though? Can't you just ride a skateboard either way?
But it's a bit like, so yeah, you can, but I'm not a great skateboarder, but I know a bit about it. And you can't, it's like boxing. So in boxing, most people are right-handed, lead with their left hand to jab, which is a normal standard thing. And then when they say about someone being a southpaw, it means you lead with your right hand to jab and your other one to, and some people can switch. But anyway, with skateboarding,
I would lead with my right hand.
You normally stand with
I'm right-handed.
Not well. Let's not get into a big discussion about it. But yeah, seriously, if you to do standard, like when you throw in jabs, you keep your strongest hand, which would be in this case
the back,
your right hand,
right? Okay,
the back, because that's a bigger punch.
Okay,
and then because you jab to set them up, and then
maybe I'm just shit at boxing, but yeah.
Yeah, I did a bit of boxing at one time.
And skateboarding, what foot would be first normally?
So I don't know. I haven't done it for a long time. But you basically normally you have, say, like for me, it'd be like if I was getting on a skateboard, I'd be going with my left foot on the front of the board and my right foot on the back. And I think that's a standard thing that people do. But some people are like left-handed or whatever.
I think it's like
they,
snowboarding. I think I was the other way around.
Well, the snowboarding's got a lot of similarities. They probably call it the same thing as well. So they call it goof style or goofy stance or something. I know this I've got to point out, I'm not good at skateboarding. I have done a bit of boxing, but I've never done much skateboarding. But I've played a lot of Tony Hawk. So I'm too big for skateboarding.
You're a bit too big for skateboarding, aren't you?
The board. I did play a lot of Tony Hawk pro skater games when I was younger, and they always had like some skaters that have goofy stance and some would have like normal stance. So that's where a lot of my knowledge comes from of that.
It's as good as any knowledge.
Yeah. So anyway, they tell him that he tells them it was Arthur, and then he says they say, he shows him the board, and they say that was Johnny's board. He was very proud of that. Johnny is Stokes, obviously, was very proud of it, and he said he won. And he's like, "Where did he get the board?" And he's like, he said he won it in a skateboard competition. And obviously, we know that was actually Arthur's board, so he didn't get it from there. He got it from Arthur. And then finally, just to wrap up the whole thing that Edgar was so keen to fucking, make the other guy kill the other guy for, or let him kill himself for, is that the reason the prop guy had the skateboard is because they say, "Oh, we sold all the kids' stuff to some guy who worked in movies. He needed like props or something when we left." Which, of course, Bosch then puts it all together.
So just very quickly, because people might be confused, because I was confused. So Stokes was a friend of Arthur Delacroix. Arthur Delacroix got hit by his sister because his dad was
abusing her. Some weird thing going on there.
And then ran away. His sister knew that, let him run away.
Didn't tell them,
Didn't tell them. His dad didn't report him missing because he thought the sister had killed him. But actually, Arthur ran away, ran to his friend Johnny Stokes, who lived in that, at Laurel Canyon. And then Johnny Stokes killed him for his skateboard. Now,
so that's what Edgar.
Then
he
went.
What Bosch does,
Right. Yeah, that's the current theory.
Yeah, that's what Bosch
got killed for a skateboard. Stokes took the skateboard, told his foster parents he won it in a competition, and then at some point he wasn't their foster child anymore, when they didn't have when the father stopped working for the fire department, retired, and moved to where are they? Wherever they live. They moved from LA to that town. They sold
that town that's way
all
out
the
way.
kids' stuff in a yard auction, and
the prop guy bought it.
Trent bought it because he's a prop guy.
And he needed, like, to set dress things with, like.
So he was innocent, and he just killed himself because the police.
Yeah, it's quite sad. Though.
Tonopah. They moved to Tonopah.
Although it is sad, and I suppose, but at the same time, he was also a convicted paedophile.
Yeah, but he turned himself around. Like he was sending money to those children.
Yeah, true. He was trying to, yeah. But then again, it goes back again. We've really hammered this point a lot. But Edgar, even in that discussion, he's like, we know this, Harry. The guy was trying to appease himself by giving money because he killed the kid. And you're like, fucking hell, Edgar. Like, you just jump 2 and 2 together and get 5 every time, don't you?
He just wants to close the case. He's like, any current suspects. Like, okay, that's
the damn shoe shop closes in an hour.
Yeah, lock that guy up. I need to go. Yeah, I need to buy
drive to the desert to buy some shoes.
What's that company called? New York? Something by New York.
I don't know. Yeah, and who knows? But so that's what's happened now. Yeah, that's what Harry's kind of put together. And then
take me to the shoe outlet and lock that guy up.
Yeah, and Harry rings Edgar and says, tells him, he says it was Stokes, and he tells him what you've just explained.
And Edgar's like, bloody hell, what?
To which,
I thought the case was closed. I'm halfway to the shoe shop.
I'm in the queue for the checkout. I'm not coming now. Anyway, so Harry's pissed off. Bosch is really, really pissed off with himself because he says we had him and I let him go, and I let him go, and then he says he's off to find Stokes himself. Well, basically, he feels like he has to find Stokes.
Edgar says Meng's gonna really pissed off, and Harry says it's I take it. It's my responsibility. Mm-hmm. I made the mistake here.
Yeah, and then we get to a really pivotal kind of scene in this, which is as Harry's kind of staking out a food truck or something, because it looks like to like try and find Stokes presumably. Edgar rings him and says he rings him and tells him that he needs to go to a call, and so then he hears he's driving away. Oh no, Edgar rings about something else and he leaves because of that. But then Harry, as he's driving away, he hears on his radio a 187. He hears this like code 187, whatever. Female murder victim, female, approximately 30 years old. And then he swings his car around and
he hears murder victim and leaves, and then on the way he hears
it says female
and he's like, what female? Because he thinks it's Waits, and Waits has killed guys
men
so far. Like we know that his first victim was a woman, but after that it's only been men apparently.
Yeah, that's true. And as he arrives, Edgar meets him and says, 187, Harry, a female. Now, I put down everybody who's ever listened to any kind of hip-hop or rap from any, like, 1990s or earlier, or even, like, gangster rap stuff. Everybody knows what a 187 is, because Dr. Dre has it in every song. But basically, that's just a murder code.
Well, it's the funny thing about that, it's the... So I read up about this, because I read about LAPD codes. And I've actually listened to you can like stream like radio frequencies from the police, and I've listened to LAPD like Hollywood Division just while I was working, and the 187
is Mank on the radio.
Mank
on the radio.
Keep it off the radio. And 187 is the California Penal Code, so that's the code the lawyers and courts use. It's not the official code, but it's just like the slang for murder.
Yeah.
And in the books, Bosch has a tie pin. Just says 187.
Yeah. That's for the homicide division. This is a really pivotal scene because obviously Edgar's. Well, I don't know. Edgar doesn't seem to get the significance of it at first, but he tells them the victim was a prostitute. And then we can see that they're walking towards the dumpster that Waits was looking at, or similar.
And there's shoes. There's the shoes in front.
Yeah, and as Harry goes to look in, he kind of immediately kind of freaks out, and he's like, "Oh shit," and he freaks out. And then finally, Edgar, while not thinking about shoes, goes, "What's up? Are you okay?" And
before they even look in, he says, "There's those shoes." And then Bosch goes, "Are they her shoes?" And then he goes, "No, she's wearing her shoes. Those are extra." It looks staged.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah,
then Bosch is
staged.
already in Bosch's brain. You can see he's already figured it out.
But he really loses it.
He
when
loses
sees
it when he looks in now.
Yeah, and he says he did this to get at me because he's basically recreated the scene of Bosch's mother's murder, who was murdered in this way.
This is for me, he says.
This is for me, yeah, that's right. And then, of course, at that point, Edgar, for once, decides to do some fucking work and says, "Go home, Harry. I'll handle this. The shoe shop's closed anyway. It's fine." He says, "I'll hit them in the morning." The phone rings, and of course, we know who it's going to be. It's Waits, and Waits.
And he also, Edgar, to his credit, says, "Shall I take this?" Because he sees that Bosch really worked.
Yeah, Bosch is really So he actually, and of course, the other thing that I forgot to mention is just before this, as they're talking, and he's like, "This is for me," and all the rest of it. He says, "Do you ever get the feeling he's watching us right now?" Which we know he probably is because he's fucked up. But that's why I thought about the phone and this bullshit kind of technology shielding the fucking the tracking thing.
Yeah, just track his fucking phone now.
He's right round the corner watching you. But anyway, so he rings up. Waits rings Bosch, obviously knowing that he's trying to rub it in, and he says, "Did you get my message?" To which Bosch says, "Oh, you think you're clever?" And he says to Bosch, "Your mother was a whore, mine was a saint, and that's something we don't have in common." Because he keeps trying to tell Harry how much they're alike.
She was a saint with a bloody whistle.
Yeah, and he says he knows he's close, so Harry's like, "I'm close to you now. I'm going." He basically says, "I've almost got you," or whatever. But then I put down at the end because you can tell that I really don't like Waits. Obviously, you're not supposed to, but I put down he is always taunting Harry with this. He's a total dickwad. is what I wrote down about Waits because he kind of is. So he really gets off on rubbing it in and annoying.
Yeah, that's actually what Eleanor said in her profile of him as well. Earlier.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. And then the final scene, pretty much, we see Bosch goes to the records office.
Before that, actually, they mentioned that Waits. So Edgar's basically, how does he know the scene? And he basically says, well, that reporter did Nate Tyler, that reporter did like a hit piece on me, and
you're
that
right.
had
He does.
all the links
says,
to the old news articles, which basically say how his mother was found. Also, when they show like the prostitute in the dumpster, titties. That was really you can see that that's just like a streaming show. It's not like on mainstream US TV because just like naked breasts with nipples. Oh God.
Yeah, definitely. But you get that a lot on the streaming shows. Netflix do it as well because they can do stuff. Obviously, they're not quite bound by the same rules. So then Bosch goes to the record office to look for his mother's.
Yeah, I think it's the LAPD records. Yeah. He looks for the murder book, the old murder book.
And he gives the guy the details. The guy's pissed off. It's the middle of the night, and he's like, "I wouldn't come at this time if it wasn't serious."
Why's the guy pissed off? He's on duty there. It's his fucking
think he'd
job.
Want something to do.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe he's related to Edgar, and he's like, "Do you know my cousin Jerry?" Anyway, I'm
online shopping here for shoes.
Yeah, exactly. I'm online shopping for shoes.
Zalando.
Yeah, he tells them a cold case team might have pulled it or something. He says,
I don't understand that. He's like, I'm taking a shot. Cold case might have pulled the book. Is he trying to figure out who pulled the book, or is he just getting? So
I wondered that if he's trying to work out if Waits got the book, got the information from someone else, or actually, the guy who wrote the hit piece that you were talking about, the journalist, did he get someone within the PD to pull it for him to give him information that he could then use to spice up his piece?
Although when it ends with Bosch gets the book. And then it ends with Bosch in his living room with the view and a scotch.
So I put this about how it's like it like loops back to the start again. Yeah.
And he pulls out a clipping from the LA Times from back in the day where it says how his mother was found in a dumpster, and that's pretty much how Waits could have got that. He just pulled the old newspaper article, I think. Also, I liked how when they show the murder book, it says, I paused this, of course, and I had a look, and it says Eno and McKittrick at the bottom, who are the two detectives who investigated the murder.
That's a nice touch.
Which, it's significant in the books because later on there is a book where basically Bosch goes and, as a side thing of, I think somebody tries to frame him for like murders, and as a side thing, it's been a while since I read this, and lots of beer. This beer is empty now. He meets with McKittrick, and like basically solves the murder of his mother. So this might come up in the show later. Thought that was interesting.
Yeah. No, it's true. It probably will. And I put down as well. I forgot to mention that there's lots of kind of like. So this has really gotten to him.
Oh, he goes that. No, sorry, that is in the show later. He goes and meets that one.
Show, like,
he meets that one. Guy, he must be.
And he's accused of killing him.
Yeah, he must be. Or McKittrick. Some of that. Yeah. Okay, it's different than in the book, but I think they take that up later. Sorry.
No. But I put down about so once he gets these, you see Harry has a flashback to the last time he saw his mother, which is when she was going out for the evening when she was murdered, presumably, and she's getting dressed and stuff. Or she is dressed and she's going out, and she says to him, "I'll see you in the morning," and then she walks through the door, and he's.
Do you think that's her last night?
He's never saw her again. Or the next time he saw her, she was dead, basically. Or if he did even see her again, if he ever saw the body.
I don't think he saw the body. I think he just.
So that's really gotten to him, yeah. But
also, by the way, the kid in that scene, and also in the photo,
his own kid or something.
It's Titus Welliver's son.
Oh, I wondered about that.
Yeah,
interesting. Nice. So I put down at the end that it seems like Waits has finally, because he looks through the press cuttings, Bosch this is, and I put down it seems like Waits has finally succeeded in rattling Bosch, but has he just poked a bear with a stick? Which the answer is probably yes. So, credits, yeah.
Roll credits.
Roll credits, yeah. So we learned quite a lot from this one, actually. Quite a lot happens in this.
This is actually, especially with his mother, this is rolling up a huge... I mean, in the books, that's the undercurrent of lots of the cases, is like the thing with his mother. And in the series so far, we really haven't had that, except in the case.
But it really develops. You mentioned having seen later series as we have, that really kind of becomes a thing that he's obsessed with, solving this cold case of his mother's murder. But there's loads of stuff going on in this, in like different storylines that are kind of we're finding out about. So we've got the whole thing of Irv with the political shit and the O'Shea and the backstabbing Reverend and all that shit, and the deal that he's got fucked over on. And then meanwhile you've got Bosch is still looking into the Waits thing. And then there's the whole thing with his mother, and he upsets. I got the impression that the part of the reason Waits did this is because Bosch had said to him, "Why don't you bury him with the others?" And he was like, "Not with those whores." And then to prove that your mother. And again, I'm using this word because he uses it in the character.
I was just giving you shit on.
Yeah. He says like, "Your mother was a whore, mine was a saint." So it's like he's got to prove to Bosch, because he's annoyed him by saying that his mother could be buried with the others.
Yeah, I think he got that.
Your mother is a whore, mine's not. And he's. Like,
I think he got that idea with doing that right at the moment where he was calling Bosch from the cemetery. And,
I thought that.
And then the whole whore things came up. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But as I put at the end there on my notes, I think he's just basically shot himself in the foot there, because now, I mean, not like Bosch wasn't going to catch him before, but now he's pissed off. So not a good thing.
I actually think Bosch doesn't matter, but Bosch would have caught him anyway. Well, he would have caught him earlier if he had just used normal cell phone tracking, but that aside, proper cell phone tracking.
No, but Bosch doesn't know how to do that.
Yeah, Bosch doesn't know how to. That's actually quite reasonable that he wouldn't know. But it's like, aside from that, I think this sets up the further series. This sets up the whole arc with his mother.
Because he gets especially because he gets the murder book for her case, which he keeps then forever, doesn't he? And he keeps going back to all the time. So yeah, it makes sense. Cool. All right, and so should we do what's our wrap up that we need?
Yes,
to do?
Let's wrap this up. We've been going for a long time. Your spuds.
I want to go and see how burnt my spuds are.
Yeah, must be getting burned.
They might be a bit shriveled, which is not great. Nobody wants shriveled spuds.
Wow.
So
that's what they go to this natural. At some point, they're shriveled. That's always what they are. I mean, we all have to get used to that.
It's like age.
It's
Anyway,
also, yeah.
So Twitter, do we need?
Well,
to
you can send us feedback to feedback at
Yeah.
sixgun.org, especially since we're coming up to the end of this series, and after that we're going to do a little wrap-up episode. And if you have any comments, questions, we'll do our best to answer those.
Yeah,
Feedback.
Email us and tell us who your favorite characters are or whatever, stuff like that. Anything you've got thoughts on it. Who's your favorite, Earth? Well, there's only one Earth who's like cool, but who's
Favorite
your favorite
Earth
Harry,
quote?
as we said? Like Smooth Harry or Angry Harry or Sleepy Harry or I don't know. There's got to be other versions.
Dirty Harry.
Dirty, of course. Yeah.
He wasn't really so far. He hasn't been dirty really, but yeah.
Go on.
If you have GitLab, you can leave us issues through there. Link is in the show notes on sixgun.org. We are on Twitter at HW Outlaws. I'm at Fabsh, Foxtrot Alpha Bravo Sierra Hotel.
If you want to, sorry, that was my cue. I was miles away. I'm thinking about Spuds. But yeah, if you want to get hold of me, you can tweet me to at MethodDan, which is METHODDON. I'm not going to do all the. We did try and do this last time. It doesn't matter. You just find it. It's easy. Or you can actually just you can search in Twitter. If you search Dan Lynch, I'm fairly obvious. I don't have like a blue tick. I'm not famous, but I'll probably be fairly obvious. And find me on there. And you can use. Have we mentioned Discord?
Yeah, we have a Discord community. Links on sixgun.org. Also, Bytemark's paying for the hosting. We thank them for that.
Thank you to Bytemark.
They're a great hoster in the UK. And also, we would like to thank the Bourbon Boys for a great intro song.
Yes.
Remington Magnum Express, and they're great. Check them out. And that's about it. Also, we streamed the recording of this live on Twitch, so if you watch
what are we
that
up to now? 3 hours, 3.5 hours.
3 hours, yeah, 3.5 hours.
Wow.
on pretty much on.
That's
the
longer than it should have been because you got half of a show.
Well, you will get half of the botched show, and you will see behind the scenes, and also it'll end up on YouTube, sixgun.tv. You can check it out there. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it.
Yep. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next time.
Code 7. Earth out.
Yay!
So that's that. I'll stop recording. I'll send you those files.
Yeah, no worries. I'll send them back tomorrow, and you can have a look. I've got to do. I've got a bit of podcast editing to do over the weekend, so I'll be doing some audio.
And thanks to everybody who was watching this on Twitch. If you like that, I will do that more often, and I'll see you for some other streams. Thanks for watching. See you soon.
Yeah.